Here and everyone at home, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, and wherever you may be watching us. We're very pleased to have our candidates for debate this evening. And before I turn this over to Alice Pernick, who is organized the debates, I'd like to welcome you. My name is Elizabeth Radow. I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Larchmont, Mamaroneck. Want to say a bit about the League of Women Voters. As many of you know, it's been around since 1920. It celebrated its 91st birthday this last year. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. It encourages the informed and active participation in government. It works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and it influences public policy through education and advocacy. As many of you may know, we have issues breakfasts once a month throughout the year, and we tackle issues that are pertinent to both the community and also on the national and even the world stage. This coming month, November 4th, we're going to be pleased to honor Town Supervisor Valerie O'Keefe, who will be stepping down as Town Supervisor, but she has served our community for 18 years, both as a councilwoman as Town Supervisor. We hope you'll join us at Hector's at 8:15 in the morning. We collaborate with other organizations in the community. We have something that's in the planning stages with the summit. We encourage people to join us and to become members. We've got information out in the lobby, and the more robust our membership, the more that we can help serve the community. So I'm going to turn this over to Alice. I hope you have a great evening. People are coming around for you to fill out questions, and I encourage you to do so. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Beth. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming to this evening's Candidates Forum. My name is Alice Pernick. I'm the Larchmont Mamaroneck League of Women Voters Vice President and Debates Chair. Tonight, we will be having 4 debates. Following the debates, there will be a question and answer period for the candidate for the Town of Mamaroneck Supervisor. All of the candidates have received a copy of the agenda, rules, and format, and the order in which they will speak during their debate has been determined by lot. The first 2 or 3 questions in each debate will be from the League of Women Voters. After that, candidates will answer questions that have been submitted by audience members. If you wish to submit a question, please write your name and question on our form and give it to a League member or one of our student volunteers who are circulating throughout the room or will be circulating throughout the room. There are forms at the front table. There's also some question forms at the table in the back. Oh, and that's one of our volunteers there. That's Piper. Thank you, Piper. Unfortunately, is that our other? Oh, there you are, Sue. Okay, and Sue will take your questions too. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, we cannot read every question submitted by the audience members. So if we receive multiple questions about the same or similar topics, they will be grouped together, and the League of Women Voters will select one question from that group that most clearly represents the issue. So therefore, we ask for your understanding if you do not hear your exact wording on a subject that's received more than one question, or if you don't hear your name when that question on that topic is read. If we have selected your question to read, you must be present at the time it is read. Election Day this year will be on Tuesday, November 8th, and the polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. For information on where to go to vote, visit www.vote411.org for the location of polling places and other election information. For more information about the candidates, I urge you to see the League's Voters Guides, copies of which we have here tonight, I believe on the back table there, and which you can also find at www.watpa.org. Most importantly, I urge all of you to get out and vote on November 8th. Of course, we're very fortunate to live in a place where we have the right to vote in free and fair elections, but we must also keep in mind that voting is the responsibility of every citizen that's of age to do so. Many people have given their time to help ensure that the public has this opportunity tonight to learn more about the candidates and the issues. I would like to thank the members of the Larchmont Mamaroneck League of Women Voters and the Rye League of Women Voters who helped organize and run tonight's forum, and our Mamaroneck High School volunteers who are helping us gather questions from the audience. I also want to thank LMC-TV for their live broadcast, and I believe they'll be rerunning this program, so you can check for their schedule on their website, and also the other members of the press who are covering this event. And a special thanks goes to all of the candidates who are appearing here this evening as part of what I am sure are very grueling campaign schedules. I particularly want to thank our local League of Women Voters board member, Carolyn Pomerantz, who will be serving as our timekeeper this evening. And finally, I want to extend both our welcome and our thanks to tonight's moderator, Erin Malloy. Ms. Malloy is the president of the League of Women Voters of Westchester County, and she's also a former trustee and mayor of the Village of Irvington. So it's an honor to have her here with us tonight, and on that note, I turn the debates over to Ms. Malloy.
Thank you, Alice. It's a pleasure to be here. I've never had the pleasure to perform this duty in Mamaroneck, so thanks for having me. I've got a couple of connections, one of which is that Alice's husband both coached and taught my children at Irvington High School. So I'm a little disappointed he's not here tonight, but I'm glad to be with you. And it's great to see this real cross-cultural, cross-generational involvement with the youngsters doing the questioning, accepting questions, and please take advantage of them, as well as the great job the League has done in organizing this debate. The ground rules for the debates for each of the candidacies, with the exception of the town supervisor, which is unopposed, are essentially the same. Each candidate will have the opportunity to have a 1.5-minute introduction of speaking to their qualifications or whatever issues they want to address. We will then ask the questions, as Alice had said, that have been provided by the League, and then go to those questions that you have provided to the League. I'm sort of off the hook here in that I don't have to rule on whether a question is appropriate or not, which is usually the case when somebody raises their hand, but this is an excellent system in order to keep things moving in a very smooth way and not to have a lot of redundancy in terms of inquiries. I often find that the League questions are the most interesting and wonky, so then the other things sort of come up as we go along. As mentioned, our timekeeper will raise her stop sign, or her 30-second sign at the 30-second mark of the introduction at every question, and then the very obvious stop sign. And you may continue your thought, but not your paragraph once you see the stop sign coming up. So as mentioned before, too, we did draw lots, and so the first speaker will also be the first speaker for the opening statement, will also be the first speaker for the closing statement. So one has the opportunity to speak first, and the other will have the opportunity to close that portion of the program. And after having done that, incumbent Judy Myers, who is running on the Democratic ticket, will be speaking first, and challenger Susan Roth will be speaking second in both.
Susanna Keith.
Oh my God, I have the wrong name. Thank you. Wrong thing.
So everybody
Susanna
knows.
Keith. Thank you. I will not make that mistake ever again. So, Ms. Keith,
okay.
Thanks for correcting me, and I will go to Ms. Myers first for her opening statement of 1.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank the League of Women Voters from both municipalities for hosting tonight's event. I am running for re-election to represent the district that I have ably and successfully represented since 2005. Never has there been a county legislator election with so much at stake. We all know that we're in the midst of very difficult economic times, times that require experience and tough, not reckless, decisions. You have a fundamental choice to make. You can vote for my opponent, propped up by Astorino and his Tea Party views, or for me, with the experience and understanding of the entire Sound Shore community that is necessary to guide us through these tough times. I fought to reduce the county tax levy by 2.2%, more than twice the cut proposed by Astorino. My opponent supports the budget Astorino proposed, a budget that slashed essential public health, safety, and environmental services that this county needs. I call that reckless. I included $2.5 million in flood mitigation funding this year that Astorino refuses to spend. I call that reckless. My opponent wants to reopen the affordable housing settlement with all her negative rhetoric. This will expose taxpayers to $500 million penalty, smear Westchester's reputation, and reduce property values by making Westchester an undesirable place to live. I call that reckless.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. And now, Ms. Keith.
Thank you to the League for having me. The most important thing in public service is to truly understand the people's needs and concerns. I have a proven track record of listening and solving complex problems in my work, volunteer, and civic career. I am running because the county spending has increased over 20% and our taxes have increased over 16% over the last 5 years. Now our county has the most expensive property taxes in the nation. It is time to give this trophy away. While walking in the community, hitting over 4,000 homes, I have heard loudly and clearly that our taxes are like a second mortgage. This is the issue of this election. I'm a working parent with 3 children, and my husband and I have lived in the county for 17 years. The first 2 we had the honor of being in the town of Mamaroneck. I have an MBA in marketing and over 23 years in business experience leading new products to market. I have 23 years of experience fighting for women and children's health care issues across our community. But my work is a serious contrast to what we hear about career politicians, partisan, gridlock, and pushing their own pet causes. The people are tired of politics. They want solutions. They want action, and that's what I bring. Look at last year's budget. The supermajority of which the current incumbent is a member voted 247 times to override taxpayer savings. Is that good government? No matter what your party is, that's not good government. I need your vote.
Thank you very much. And there's one other thing that I did not mention I left this year. Lead by example. Turn off your cell phone alarms and things and all that. So, not because I'm going to take a phone call. It really was just to remind me to do this. The first lead question reads, presently, the process of reinventing Playland has gone through the RFP process, and the Citizens Committee has rated the 12 submitted proposals in terms of feasibility of each proposal. The matter is still being analyzed before a final decision is to be made by the county executive. What do you think are the most important factors for the county to consider and weigh in deciding the Playland's future? Ms. Keith, please.
I have a long history of service with Playland. In 1998, I was invited to be on a focus group with the Children's Museum. In addition, I served on the RYE Playland Advisory Committee from 2004 to 2006. But there's really 3 key issues when it comes to Playland. Number 1, the economic realities of the situation in our economy. Number 2, the historic landmarks, Kittyland, the Dragon Coaster, that trumps all. And number 3, what are the concerns of our community? And we really need to get out to the people and listen to that dialogue. As you know, there currently was a request for proposal process. There was a citizens committee of a number of individuals across all parties that looked at different proposals. And I have to ask why the current incumbent didn't make all those meetings with because this is a very important issue to our community. I need to ask, was she at tea parties with her friends? Because honestly, as a working parent, the only tea parties I go to are the ones with my 6-year-old daughter. But going back to really what the important issue is here, Playland going forward, we need to look at this very closely. We need to analyze what makes sense, and we need to hear from you, our citizens, about what's important. And I really look forward to that dialogue and getting out there and fighting on your behalf behind this important issue, because the number 1 issue right now in our county is keeping it affordable and also fighting for our citizens of this district. I feel like there's been a record of missed opportunities on the part of the current incumbent, and I look forward to discussing those matters with you.
Thank you. Ms. Myers, your position on Playland.
Yes, thank you very much. I have regarded Playland in my entire 6 years on the County Board of Legislators as being a public park located within the city of Rye, and my overall priority has been to make sure that Playland has been a good neighbor to the city of Rye. There were 12 proposals that the county executive put a request out for. 12 came in and 11 were deemed suitable for review. I was fortunate to be part of a committee that helped to review these. Although we were not privy to the financials, we were able to get an idea of some of the conceptual ideas behind the proposals. The county executive is not the final decision maker in this decision. It is, according to our charter, the County Board of Legislators who will approve or disapprove the future of Playland. As one of 17 county legislators, I can tell you that my overarching concern is to keep this a public park with public access to the Long Island Sound and to continue to keep it as a good neighbor to the city of Rye. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. The next lead question regarding the county's role and costs of flood mitigation. What should be the county's role in mitigating the flooding and for stormwater management in Rye and Mamaroneck? And how should any costs associated with that responsibility be funded? Should this be an added burden on the local taxpayers? Ms. Myers, your position?
Sure. This has actually been not only my position, but more than that, my passion for the past 5 years at least, because this is an area that has terrible flooding. This entire Sound Shore district has very, very bad flooding, and it's only getting worse. However, I think that Westchester County is the in the perfect position to provide a regional solution to this stormwater management problem. We have, within our county, we have 6 major watersheds, each of which acts to flood on the way out to its major source, being the Hudson River and the Long Island Sound. But because the Westchester County can provide the assistance, the funding, and the know-how to all 45 municipalities, it should not be borne by each individual municipality. It should be borne by the county as the regional provider for this flood mitigation funding and be the source through which all of the federal and state funding can flow. I have drafted and passed legislation that will enable us to continue to move forward in this way and use Westchester County as the regional provider of flood mitigation funding.
Thanks, Ms. Meyer. Your position on the flooding issues facing the area?
I have to be honest with this one. We have to really look at what's happened here with flooding. Since 2007, has anything really changed? Has there been legislation out there that has changed and given people real relief from flooding? People are still confused about where they should move their utilities, what should they do, what should they not do. And I really do believe that that could potentially be the role of the county. They could go out and advocate in our behalf, because really this issue is not just about the county and the municipalities. We need help from the state and federal government. This is bigger than us. We cannot tackle this alone. We need our county legislator to be out advocating for the municipalities and fighting for them to help them to clear up these issues. A lot needs to be done going forward. And it is not the municipalities that need to deal with this. It needs to be the county, and it needs to be the state, and it needs to be the federal government going forward. I think a severe issue was that last year there was not any money in our budget for flooding. There was an issue of where money was put in. The county executive overrode it, but the current incumbent is in leadership, and she did not override that veto. Why didn't she override that veto? Why did she put in $1.1 million of pork and slush fund money? Why didn't she fight for the citizens of our district to say we need more flood relief? We need to help our municipalities more. We need to lead what's going on with our watershed community and be a guiding force and a guiding factor. Yes, some things were done in the past, but the last 2 years has just been fighting with the current administration, and we need to work together.
Thank you. The third lead question addresses the affordable housing settlement. With regard to the county's affordable housing settlement with the federal government, do you agree with the position that HUD is attempting to retroactively apply conditions outside of the 4 corners of the settlement agreement that would broaden the agreement? Why or why not? Ms. Keith?
Affordable housing. Okay, so with affordable housing, I've always been for affordable housing. That is something that our great nation is founded upon. But I think the key issue here now is that the county needs to work very closely with HUD and the municipalities. And I think when you look at the settlement, the most important thing we have to remember about that is that they never proved that anything was done wrong. And our local mayors said, we have not done anything wrong if you look at past editions of the Sound in town. And the current incumbent voted for this settlement, even though 5 lawyers on the board across all party lines voted against it. And now what we need to say is really what are the implications? Recently, HUD's regional coordinator, Adolfo Corlon, came and he said that the $53 million price tag is only the beginning. So essentially, the current incumbent wrote a blank check for our county when we have done nothing wrong. And now what the Board of Legislators needs to do is stop fighting with the county executive and work together and try and ask HUD to work out a peaceful way to resolve the situation when our communities have done nothing wrong.
Thank you. Ms. Meyer.
Yes,
Affordable
thank you very
Housing.
much. I was integrally involved in the active settlement of this housing discrimination lawsuit in Westchester County. And I saved Westchester taxpayers by voting in favor of this settlement, saved Westchester's taxpayers close to $500 million in penalties. Despite the fact that we are actually moving ahead very nicely with the terms of this settlement and that we are developing the units, I would like to set the record straight, and I actually have letters from the U.S. Department of Justice that I can show if you need to see them. The settlement capped our contribution at $51.6 million, which was a penalty, and we were told we could use this money to leverage the building of 750 units throughout Westchester County, and that is what we are doing. Our letter from the Department of Justice says that is capped at that amount. HUD cannot force the county to sue local municipalities, even though our county executive assumes they can. The settlement agreement has been called federal overreach and social engineering and an integration order. And I feel that this rhetoric borders on racist and paints a very, very bad picture of Westchester County, and I would hope that my opponent would not further this kind of language. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. We are going to questions that have been submitted to the League by people in the audience. Again, as Ms. Pernick had said, we're trying to consolidate them so the broadest range of questions can be addressed. This was submitted by Don Sutherland at 622D Larchmont Acres. Is he in the audience tonight? Great, thank you. Now, Mr. Sutherland's question is, what is the biggest thing the county government could do over the next 2 years to benefit Westchester County? We'll ask you that question first, Ms. Myers.
The biggest thing that Westchester County, is that what the question was?
Yes.
Or the legislators?
It says county government.
The biggest thing county government can do for Westchester County in these next 2 years is to make sure that we come through this very, very difficult economic time with our infrastructure intact, with our public safety held harmless, and while preserving the public health of this community. These are the areas that our county executive would like to cut away, all in the name of cost cutting and nice things to have, but we can't afford it. These are quality of life issues that most of us, probably most of us in this room, chose Westchester County as a place to live because of this element of public health and public safety and our wonderful public parks and our aging infrastructure that needs continual capital project service and doesn't get it and hasn't gotten it in these past 2 years. The best thing we can do in the next 2 years is continue to override all of the many vetoes that come down from the county executive so that we can continue to move Westchester forward.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. In your view, Ms. Keith, I've had the best things for the government.
The most important thing is to make our county affordable for the long term. We want our families to stay here. We want to be able to afford to send our kids to college. We want the seniors to be able to stay here. We want to be able to afford to take care of our parents. This is critical. And a very important point is spending has grown at nearly 50% faster than the economy in the pre-Astorino years. And you need to look at a big, serious chart that really shows this well. If you look at the median income and the way household taxes have grown, you can see there's a really big gap. And our current legislator has been part of that era of Spano spending. So what is the number one thing I would do? I would work really hard to bring tax relief but maintain essential services. And how can we do that? By number one, asking our county workers to contribute to their health care, getting behind the county executive as he negotiates to say, please, will you deliver and to your health care plan, because right now our county workers pay zero. When you look at General Motors, when they went bankrupt, their fringe benefits or the overall package was 39%. Right now, county workers, it's 60%. All we're asking is equity and fairness. And I challenge my opponent, if she will ask them, she probably won't, because she has the endorsement of the unions. So I'm wondering, really, who is she beholden to? I'm beholden to you, the taxpayers of Westchester County, and I will fight hard for you, and I will maintain essential services.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. Our second question from the audience comes from Thomas Modio, whom I saw earlier, of Fenimore Road, and he is asking, what must be done by state, local, county governments in New York to prevent young professionals and families from moving out every day? Would you please address that first,
I
Ms.
think,
Keith?
again, it's all about spending and taxes. We really have to make this community affordable. What's happening is our young people can't afford to buy a house. They're not making enough money. So we have to, number one, make the county affordable by getting taxes down. I mean, this is the most expensive county in the nation. We need to make sure our young people can stay here. Secondly, we need to work hard on job creation. And how can we do that? By making sure people's taxes are less so they can spend more money, so businesses can come here. And I also think a very important point is we can work really hard to support the municipalities. Fight for the village of Mamaroneck, the town of Mamaroneck, the city of Rye, help them out with flooding so that they can have some sort of control to businesses to say we're working on issues. We're pushing the state and the federal government to help us in all these flooding concerns. I also think, again, it's all about taxes and savings. We've got to ask those county workers to contribute something to their health care. In the city of Rye, they pay 20 to 25%. Again, it's about equity and fairness. We also have to cut out Board of Legislators perks. Right now, there's an awful lot of money being spent on photo ops, personnel, and pizza, and this has to stop. In addition, we have to cut out the $1.1 million in pork. Why wasn't that put aside for our people, for flood mitigation? That could have done a lot for Village of Mamaroneck and for other towns to have little small projects, and they weren't getting the help that they needed from our county legislator. And that, if we get our spending down, we'll be able to keep our young people here.
Thank you so much. And you, Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you. I must say, I think my opponent might be better off running for the school board, given that 60% of Westchester's property tax is actually school tax. And I believe her chart actually shows the school tax change within our county. However, the way that we can keep our young people from moving out, keep our seniors from leaving, is to make sure that, to the best of our ability in the county, we can keep our county spending within reason, we can keep our county taxes low, and we can continue to operate and run as a county government. We can do this through shared services, something I've been working on for the past 2 years as a co-chair of a committee that is committed to finding ways in which we can share services between municipalities, share services between municipalities and the county, where the county can provide things very often for less cost than individual municipalities. We can consolidate. We've consolidated departments. We are continuing to do that so that we can find people who are working and doing very similar tasks can work in the same department and thus relieve the need to have a separate department head and commissioner, which is where the larger salaries lie. And thirdly, I'm proud to say, as a co-chair of a health insurance committee this past year, we did institute health insurance payments for all of our non-represented management, and I hope it will serve as a model in terms of going forward.
Thank you very much. Another audience question. This came from June Weisenberg and Alex Liggins. Are you here?
Jane.
Jane. Sorry. Okay. Forgive me. From 42 County Road. What would you like to see changed, if anything, regarding the Indian Point Power Plant and its evacuation plan? Ms. Myers?
Good question. We don't have a real evacuation plan for Indian Point, and never has this been more underscored and more necessary than in the wake of the huge Japanese earthquake and tsunami that destroyed their nuclear power plants. Our nuclear power plant here in Westchester County is located on 2 faults, not 1, but 2 fault lines. This was not understood at the time that it was built, but it's clearly understood now. We hear a variety of different voices saying how much we need this energy, when in reality there are other energy sources that we could use and provide the same amount of power here in Westchester County. I firmly believe that not only do we need a real evacuation plan, we ultimately need to move Indian Point out of Westchester County.
Thank you. Ms. Keith, your position on Indian Point?
This is something that we need to keep a very close watch on, given what happened in Japan. However, right now, Indian Point provides a lot of high energy energy for our community, up to a term, somewhere between 20 to 30%. So when we make this kind of decision, we really need to do some serious analysis to see what makes sense and what are the implications. I challenged the incumbent, why would she make this analysis? Is this similar to the decision that she made on the federal affordable housing settlement when she was quoted in the Larchmont Gazette that she voted for it without even knowing the action plan? I'm a marketing consultant, and I do serious financial analysis, recommendations, solutions, and if I ever made a recommendation without knowing the real outcome, I would be fired. So this is something that you really need to do some serious analysis. We need to look at the energy costs. We need to explore what are other potential options, how would those options impact the environment and our children, and have a real clear action plan about what makes sense for our community. We need to really look at that, because we really are only one taxpayer, although there are the school taxes and that there are the city taxes and there are county taxes. But you know what? You can make a difference in this budget. You know, you can go out and vote for the school budget, but you can make a difference right now in the county budget by voting for me, because I'm going to curb spending in a way to control and maintain our essential services, but to get our taxes down.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. This is another question from the audience from Fran Snedeker. Is that right? Did I say that properly? Thank you. And this goes to you, Ms. Myers. You are known for your espousal of public health services for low-income individuals in need of family planning, daycare, reproductive health care. Is this an appropriate use of our tax money? Is that okay? Ms. Myers.
Absolutely. Do I need to go on? No, just teasing. It is absolutely a perfect use of taxpayer-funded programs that the county has entered into in the past and has been very, very successful with in the past. Our current administration is looking to cut $3 million out of our community neighborhood health clinics that provide access to uninsured and underinsured individuals. The county executive wants to cut this funding out from under all of these neighborhood health clinics, including limiting and actually getting rid of any kind of contraception, counseling, medical care, refusing to reimburse it. I am also the sponsor of legislation currently that would increase access to our reproductive health clinics, which are currently besieged very often by sidewalk counselors who tend to try to veer potential patients away from going into the reproductive health clinics. I believe we should be funding. This is a terrific way to use limited county funds to impact a huge number of people, especially women and children.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Keith, you have a position on the healthcare reproductive?
I'm a working parent, and I have always been for issues that are important for women and children. As I mentioned in the opening statement, I have fought hard for 23 years on women's and children's health care issues and domestic violence issues. One issue I didn't get to mention earlier was I was president of the New York United Hospitals Twig organization, and when that hospital in Portchester, which probably many of you know, went bankrupt, I started a new not-for-profit to fulfill a need for the community. They know many people of need no longer had a way to get to the emergency room, which is often the first place of where they can get emergency health care. With our new not-for-profit, we have been able to buy our local ambulance corps 2 new ambulances as well as needed equipment to save lives, and that's really fulfilling an important need. So I have a lot of experience of public and private partnerships and what really makes sense for our community. There are times when essentially the government cannot afford to fund everything, so we need to look at creative services. And also this overall issue of healthcare and reproductive issues, there's very little that my opponent and I disagree on, but I think you need to look at how we're different. There is a sharp contrast between me as a fighter, someone who has a proven record of solving tough, complex issues, and a career politician who's going to cater to special interest groups.
Thank you. This is another lead question, which addresses energy consumption. What measures would you support to reduce the county's energy needs and carbon footprint, as well as its energy expenses? Ms. Keith, please.
Oh, it's a great question. On the Rice City Council, I had the opportunity to introduce our sustainability plan, which we call Go Green to Save Green, because I think it's really important to educate the public that a lot of the things that we can do about going green really don't cost money, and we really need to work together across all party lines to achieve this, because that is what's right for our environment. I created a community of people from all parties, all backgrounds to work together, PhDs, engineers, and we are right now looking at our carbon footprint. I think a real opportunity for the county is we do have a green plan. We haven't really done much to promote that. We need to get out there and promote that more. We need to look at alternative energy sources. We need to really push our county as a whole. A number of communities like Bedford and Northern Westchester have gotten together. They got some grants for a sustainability coordinator. Why can't we in the Sound Shore community do that? Let's group together. We've already seen our sustainability committee reaching out to Larchmont, Mamaroneck, working together on big ideas. That's what we need to do, and that's a great opportunity for your county legislator to get out and fight for these things and to look for other options. You know, in Rye, Little Resurrection Church put solar panels on their roof and harnessed a higher power. Why can't we do that in municipal government? We need to all work together to make this happen.
Thanks, Ms. Keith. Ms. Myers?
Yes. If my opponent had done a little bit more research, she would have been able to find all of the legislation that is currently in place, and largely during the time that I have been on the County Board of Legislators, in place to impact all public work projects that go on within the County of Westchester that are performed by the County of Westchester on county-owned property, to make sure that each and every one is done in the most energy-efficient manner possible. We have authorized green roofs, we have authorized rain gardens, we have authorized very, very large stormwater retention systems. We have in this county begun the very massive project of reducing our carbon footprint. We had a very, very hardworking global warming task force that was in place under the last administration, who produced a volume of information about ways in which this county can reduce its carbon footprint and help to reduce global warming. This task force and its report has not been utilized in the least by the current administration. So as the legislators continue to pass legislation that restrict idling, that only allow the county to purchase hybrid vehicles, that I can go on, change every single light bulb in every county building, we have a much larger role to play, and we should be playing that with regards to the entire county and the findings of our task force. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Regarding merger of services, are there governmental services that are now being delivered at the town and village level that you believe would be more effectively or efficiently handled by the county? I'll ask you first, Ms. Keith.
Well, I think the important thing, when we have tough economic times like we do, and right now, again, the most important issue is to get our county affordable for the long term. And when you do that, you need to do careful analysis of all the scenarios. And one of the key things you can look at is the fact that we have 425 taxing entities in our county. And are there opportunities to do shared services and to work together? I think a great first step has been the Rye Town study, that they're out there looking at what makes sense. They're doing a great analysis. They have a consulting group. I was very impressed by the individual who presented in September, a PhD out of Stanford, who's going to be looking at the issues. But the most important thing is that's going to be a community dialogue, and we know that ultimately that decision will come to a referendum about what's best for the community. But I think that those are the kinds of things that we need to look at. Does it make sense to have all these different layers of government? In the city of Rye, we've looked at working with the Board of Ed on snow removal, adding salt, really trying to save costs across the board. We can definitely do that across the county. But really the big thing that we need to do, the big nugget we need to crack, is to ask our county workers if they will contribute to their health care. And again, I challenge my opponent to see if she will answer this question. I've asked her this on TV now and in multiple debates, and still I get no answer. And is it because she has the endorsement of the unions? I would like to know that.
Well, the league is
Do I get
asking
to
the
answer?
questions. You can. There are no rebuttals, and you can address it however you please. But
I
we
think
are
I already
talking
did.
about mergers.
I already did answer that.
Excuse me, but
Oh,
we are
sorry.
talking about merger services.
Got it. All right. And I did already answer. She may not have heard me, but we did institute payments for non-represented management in Westchester County, including elected officials. We now pay up to 20%. I pay 20% of the premium for my health coverage. And that's actually brought in a huge savings to the county, even just on that level, because it's revenue that comes into the county, and we are self-funded. Back to the merger of services, this is a huge area for the county, and one in which we are continually pushing and pushing. I am the co-chair, matter of fact, of a committee called the Government Reform, Efficiency, and Savings Committee that has looked at everything from the kind of health insurance we should be providing and where we could save money there, as well as mergers between police departments, mergers between fire departments. We have looked at and continue to push for mergers between different departments within the county. We're currently looking at Consumer Protection Department merging with the Department of Health, where there's a great deal of overlap. The county is in a perfect position and has done so over the years, has done a great deal over the years to try to provide county services to municipalities. Police, dispatch, fire dispatch. These are things that are available, and it is up to each municipality, and I have worked with each of my municipalities to make sure they're taking advantage of this service.
Okay, that's the end of the question portion, and we will now ask the candidates to do their summaries. And as we did in the first segment of introductions, Ms. Myers will go first and will be followed by Ms. Keith, whose name I now had correct.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Erin, for agreeing to be our moderator tonight.
My pleasure.
Westchester County continues to face challenges, and the Sound Shore communities are certainly not exempt. I bring 6 years of experience as a county legislator and 6 years of experience as a Mamaroneck Town Board member. With me as I run for re-election as county legislator, and I promise you that I will continue to make the very tough decisions to reduce taxes and spending, as I did this year, while maintaining the very, very important health and safety services that this community needs and deserves. I will continue to work hard to represent the people in my district, and I will happily vote to override another 247 reckless vetoes in Mr. Astorino's budget that should be coming to us soon. I thank you for your vote on November 8th. You can find me on the Democratic, Working Families, and Independence Party lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. And please, Ms. Keith, if you would wind up this segment of our program.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having me. I think the key issue here is that people in our community work hard. When they get off the train or drive home, they just want peace from the knowledge that their elected officials are taking care of their needs. And it is disingenuous for my opponent to argue about tax relief when last year's budget was balanced on the back of future generations by really raiding the fund balance and was really financial trickery. Then she voted 247 times against taxpayer savings. Was that good government? Couldn't they have agreed on something? And in the ultimate act of partisanship, she was the deciding vote for the Spano federal affording housing settlement, even though our local community had done nothing wrong and was against it. I am a serious contrast to a career politician who was a Mamaroneck trustee for years and now has been on the county board for many years. Can you remember a single bill she has championed that actually passed into law that substantially reduced our long-term tax burden? People are tired of experience. They want solutions. They're tired of photo ops, porks, pizza. They want new, fresh leadership. They want someone as a fighter. They don't want a prolific tax hiker, rubber stamp. I will not be a rubber stamp for Rob Astorino. I will fight for what is right for our community, just as I've done with the Rice City Council, just what I did with the Twig organization, and I will be here for you. Please vote for me on November 8th, because I will make our county affordable for all by maintaining essential services. Thank you.
Thank you both. And allow me. We'll now take a couple of minutes as our next candidates come forward for the mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck.
And I'd like to encourage people to use the time to submit some questions. We have the Village of Mamaroneck mayor candidates, the village trustees, and the town council, and also the town supervisor coming up.
Hey, thank you. Ms. Myers. Thank you so much.
Did I say tax spending enough?
Just like that. Let's see. I think that's going to be pretty great.
How's everybody? Enjoying freedom? Yes, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Are you enjoying your freedom? And then my sister where does she live?
recipient.
There you go. Would you mind if I hear me?
Thank you all for taking your seats. That's the passive-aggressive way.
It was long, so they really need
Yeah.
to stretch.
I've got my very own gavel, and I know
Oh,
how to
okay.
use it, okay?
Nice size, too.
Oh, it is. It's massive. I like this.
I see Valerie's.
It looks like it's well used. I
Yeah.
guess Valerie keeps it good.
She's had it for a lot of years, so it must be well used.
I'm sure she'll have to take it with her.
Yeah, she should. They should engrave it for her, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an
Should put
excellent
something
point,
on it,
right?
yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for taking your seats. We're going to start just now, please. We are beginning the segment of the program with the two candidates for Mamaroneck, Mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck, forgive me. If everybody has submitted the questions that they have to league members or our wonderful league helpers from the political club at the high school. Okay, I think we'll get started. The format is the same as we had before, which is 1.5-minute opening statements, 1.5-minute responses to questions provided by both the league and you, the audience. I didn't mention this earlier, and I appreciate you all for just intuitively understanding this, that there are no interruptions for applause for each candidate. We'll save that to the end. This is, their opportunity to be able to speak directly to you. So the real focus of this is to hear what your candidates have to say. And the candidates for mayor are Norman Rosenblum, who is running on the Republican slate as an incumbent, and challenger Tony Pergola Ryan, who is running on the Democratic line. And I will also say there might be additional endorsements. If the candidates feel to clarify that, that'd be great. So we are starting with the 1.5-minute introduction. You'll get a 30-minute heads up for more.
30 seconds. You said 30
30
minutes.
minutes. Oh, yeah, no,
I'll
we'd all
talk
be
30
asleep
minutes.
by then. No, I'm sorry. With all due respect for your rhetorical capabilities, but we're not going to give you the opportunity. 30 seconds, thank you. So we did do the drawing of lots, and we are beginning the opening statements with Ms. Ryan.
Thank you. I'm Tony Pergola Ryan, and I'm here to ask for your support for my candidacy for mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck. I've served our community as an elected official for 7 years and bring a rare historical perspective to the table, along with a clear understanding of our current issues and needs. I have a strong desire to protect what we value in our village as we plan what we want our future to be. I'm running now because I want to put the knowledge and experience I've gained during my service to even better use. While the mayor is but one vote and but one member of the board, the mayor must be a leader, a consensus builder, and a true believer in open government and transparency. Our mayor needs to treat every neighborhood and every resident of our village equally. Our mayor has to work more closely with neighboring communities to identify projects that we can undertake together to get more money to to get more value for our money jointly than we would separately. I'm running for mayor because I have a proven track record as a trustee and as a board liaison to 2 outstanding productive committees. Mamaroneck, you know me, and you know what you are getting if you elect me mayor. I always try to do the right thing. I make my own decisions. I don't make promises I can't keep. I leave politics at the door, and most important, I never degrade the value of a relationship because we disagree. I promise to give you the same level of caring and depth of work that you have come to expect of me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ryan. Mr. Rothblum.
Thank you. I bring a long family history of over 100 years in the village of Mamaroneck. My grandfather, Nathan Serlin, came here in 1904. He became very successful as an immigrant. He built the first apartment houses in the village of Mamaroneck. He was involved directly in the community by starting the Hebrew Institute, which is now the Westchester Jewish Center. His children, my mother, one of them was involved in the PTA. She's one of the founders of the Westchester chapter of the UJA. She's past president of the Westchester Jewish Center Sisterhood twice. My uncle was a judge, Judge Serlin, for 20 years. My cousin, who ran with me the first time I ran, and both successful in 1980 to 82. He was also judge for approximately 28 years. And I happen to be the current mayor. And the reason I bring that up is because it's a sense of family, and that's what the Village of Mamaroneck is about, a sense of family. And the reason I'm running again is I love the position of mayor. I think I've been very successful along with Lou Santoro, and I have to speed this up. But I will say that we did meet our goals that we ran on 2 years ago. And the good thing that you have in this situation is you have a clear, distinct choice between Tony Ryan and myself. There's a philosophical difference. I would describe my tenure as proactive versus Tony's reactive. And you can do that by comparing her previous 7 years in service and what happened and what we accomplished in the past 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question from the League addresses merger of services. Austining has consolidated their village and town justice courts and also consolidated their police department with the county police. Standing in this courtroom, we are within walking distance of both a town and village justice court and a town and village police department. In an era of many fiscal constraints, do you believe that we need separate justice courts and police departments? If so, why? If not, what would you do to eliminate this duplication of services? Mr. Rosenblum?
Actually, there's a current study that it's a New York State grant for $50,000, which involves the town of Rye, Rye Brook, Portchester, and the Rye-Neck section of the town of Mamaroneck. The purpose is to dissolve the town of Rye. The Rye-Neck section was initially treated as a stepchild, and they assumed that would be taken into the town of Mamaroneck. I strongly disagreed, and the 3 other municipalities actually did come to a consensus. The whole purpose really comes from Cuomo's legislation for consolidation. Ironically, the village of Mamaroneck probably is the strongest of all 3 communities, and I would say that the consolidation should be that you dissolve the town of Rye and the village of Mamaroneck becomes a town by itself. And the reason I say that is it would not cost the village of Mamaroneck anything because you already have police, fire, sanitation, recreation, and then what you would do is you would then start sharing a higher degree with the tax revenues as a town, and you'd also get mortgage money. And you would also be able to get more funds on the federal level. And that makes more sense. There have been previous studies that shown, particularly as an example, the Village of Mamaroneck Volunteer Fire Department is a perfect example of how to have protection, safety, and welfare, and also as a tax savings. It cost the Village of Mamaroneck approximately $700,000 versus millions in other towns.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenblum. Ms. Ryan, merger of services.
I think that we have to look very carefully at what the result of the study between Rybrook and the town and the study that we attended the first meeting of in September. I think we need to look very carefully at what happens. We have looked at sharing services, and it appears that sharing services, to me, would be a first step in where we could go with becoming one community and dissolving the different overlaps of government. I'm not sure that any of us is at the point yet where we're willing to give up without first looking at what the logical steps would be to take before we say, well, we're going to just, have one courthouse and one whatever. I think it's certainly not unreasonable to expect that to happen, and I do agree with Mr. Rosenblum that we, the Village of Mamaroneck, would be the strongest to run everything, but I think we would have to really work very, very hard with our neighbors, and we'd have to really look into what the benefits would be, because in the other communities that were mentioned, they have found that the money they thought they would save isn't really what resulted. So we have to be careful what we do as we move forward. And that's the first step to me, is to really do a good study and understand whether or not it will benefit everybody. That's not determined yet.
Thank you. This question is about environment, and a very thoughtful league person told me how to pronounce this because I'm miserable with acronyms. A few years ago, the village joined ICLEI, an association of local governments committed to sustainability and to the reduction of our carbon footprint. What measures would you take as mayor to reach the village's carbon reduction goal? Ms. Ryan?
Well, I'm very, very happy to say that someone who actually brought ICLEI to the village is here tonight. ICLEI was brought to the village by a group that was called Cool Cities, and at the time, the village was not really quite sure of how we were going to proceed with reducing our carbon footprint, and we have a committee for the environment that I'm very lucky to be liaison to. The Committee for the Environment has a member in its group who undertook the study to see how we can reduce our carbon footprint. She took 2005 as the year that would be the measurement year, and we have found that the greatest expense, and it's no surprise, is fuel, and we have now begun to do some things that will help us. One thing we've done is we have one veggie van. I'd like to see the village retrofit our garbage trucks, at least a couple more, because that really makes a difference. We've begun to buy fuel-efficient cars. We've just bought 2 Priuses for the police department. We need to continue to do that. We need to really do the little things like changing all the light bulbs. We have committed to a 5% reduction. The entire board has agreed to that by 2015. I truly think we can do better, and I think that we have to look at other ways other than what we've identified, because there are simple things we can do.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Yeah, as a voting member of ICLEI, I would tell you that it's a great site. You can go on. Unfortunately, like most communities that are involved in a broad national organization like this, what is presented are goals. Very recently, this village, the Village of Mamaroneck, actually did accept goals to reduce the carbon footprint. But you also must look at things on a pragmatic level. The Village of Mamaroneck can certainly review the zoning laws, have the planning board look at all applications that come before them. If it's a flat roof, you would want to have a green building. You would also continue to dredge the rivers. The biggest, after taxes, the biggest problem in the Village of Mamaroneck obviously is flooding. That has a direct impact on the environment. And I find it ironic that my opponent, because I believe as a result of conflicts of interest, not looking out for the entire welfare of the Village of Mamaroneck, most recently turned down a proposed legislation written by an attorney which they jammed through, which now results in having blacktop as an applicable solution. If you have a gravel driveway, you are now non-conforming in the Village of Mamaroneck because of the vote that was taken by the majority of the board, which I find egregious when you're talking about the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenblum. The next league question is regarding LWRP. What, in your opinion, needs to be included in the update of the local waterfront revitalization plan in order to meet the needs of the various elements of the community? Mr. Rosenblum, you first,
yes.
Please.
I am the chairman of the LWRP Review Committee. There's been a lot of statements going back and forth. People are certainly interested in their own particular area, but overall, looking at the general welfare of the Village of Mamaroneck, there are specific facts. The LWRP is an update. The Village of Mamaroneck was the leader and the first one to have an LWRP. The reason you want to bring it up to snuff as to what the most current laws are in New York State. There were three possible directions that the LWRP could have gone. One was to look at the area from the post road onto the water side, and then from the post road up. But in any case, the entire village would still be under LWRP, and that wouldn't change. And the main goal that we should be looking to do is that you want to make and codify the process when people come before with applications, that it doesn't take a year or 2 years. We've had applications such as the railroad restaurant and building. It's taken over a year and a half, and it just turns out to be punitive to the applicants. The LWRP will be brought up to date. We have Charlie McCaffrey, who's also a consultant for us, and he helped write the first one. And as a leader, I am fully confident that the LWRP will be number one again in New York State.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenblum. Ms. Ryan, the LWRP.
The LWRP it was time for it to be updated, and we have had one charrette. We're going to have another one November 6th. The purpose of the charrettes is for people to give their input as to what they think their LWRP should be. It needs to be reflective of the community. It's a document to protect our waterfront. Some of the things that are very vital are the jurisdiction needed to be reaffirmed, and that was that it would be the Harbor and Coastal Zone Management Commission that would make all the determinations on applications within the entire boundary of the village. And that is the second part that's very important about the LWRP, and it is that the entire village is the boundary of the LWRP, because flooding happens throughout our village, and all kinds of water issues go on all throughout our village. Climate change is something that really needs to be looked at. I'm not sure that it's been done enough. We need to look at the wetlands law and storm management, and we need to include all the marine businesses in the next charrette to make sure that we have their input, because the biggest purpose is to promote marine life and marine businesses on the along the coastal waterfront, and that's what we need to make sure we do November 6th to get that input.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. The first question from the audience, it comes from Donald DeRigo, Soundview Avenue. Are you present? Thank you. This was also asked by others. The question goes to you, Ms. Ryan. You supported firing Steve Silverberg, who handled the land use matters because, quote, change is good, end quote. In 2011, the village has incurred $130,619 in legal fees for the identical work Mr. Silverberg charged the village $18,000 per year to perform. How do you justify this unnecessary expenditure?
Well, first of all, we would have been very happy if Mr. Silverberg had stayed on as village attorney. Mr. Silverberg chose not to stay on as village attorney. We were very clear when we regained the majority that one of the things we were going to do was we were going to look at land use attorneys. Practically all of our lawsuits are the result of land use issues. We felt very strongly that one of the weaknesses that we had was the training for volunteers, wonderful, wonderful people who come and sit on these boards and are given huge responsibilities to make incredible decisions. We thought that one of the things was lacking was their training. We know that the application process that goes before all the land use boards is onerous, so when we regain the majority, we told the rest of the board that we were going to look at land use attorneys. We did that. I think the numbers, people can make numbers look like whatever they want. We don't know when the billing comes in for the amount they're saying we're paying. I do believe that we have a fresh group, and they are doing an incredibly good job training our people. They're very happy. Sometimes you have to spend thousands to save millions. Are we spending thousands right now? Yes, we are. Will we save millions? Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Do you have a response to that?
Yes, interesting answer. Unfortunately, there's a lot of fluff. Let's talk about the reality. The fact of the matter is that Steve Silverberg was originally appointed by a 5-0 Democratic board. Previously to my election, I attended every board and commission in the Village of Mamaroneck. I probably knew more than the current Board of Trustees and the previous mayor. I would note that Steve Silverberg was reappointed by myself, and I didn't care if he was a Democrat or Republican. The fact of the matter, he's an excellent attorney. And the reason that he was dumped, in my opinion, is that his political payback, because he helped settle one of the very things that I ran on the first time along with Lou, and that was to settle a $35 million liability to the Village of Mamaroneck. That was the Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht Club. And that was settled. And both Trustee Hofstetter and Trustee Ryan have continuously looked to thwart that settlement. And as a matter of fact, very recently, in the past 2 weeks, they both, against advice of village attorneys, had the potential to reopen that $35 million. Also, the $897,000 you had to do it. But the fact of the matter is, we have paid in the last 4 months 5 years of salary that Steve Silverberg would have gotten at $18,000 a year, and we spent $130,000, and they claim that's going to get paid back. Actually, $89,400 has not been paid back and will not be paid back because it's not applicable to be paid back. That's 5 years' salary. Not good for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question from the floor comes from Ellen Hopman. Thank you. And this is for both candidates. What plans do you have to raise village revenues? Give you first shot at that, Mr.
Actually, this leads to one of my philosophies about local government and the current economic situation throughout the United States and specifically in this highest taxed area in the country. We must, for us to survive, to look for alternate methods for revenue other than real estate-based tax. We are on the verge of pushing out the very volunteers that make up this great village. I will give you an example. The volunteer fire department has over 200 members, of which there are probably 70 radioactive firemen. It costs the village $650,000 a year to run it, plus add on another $100,000 a year for a 5-year capital improvement plan, which I would very gladly say that I helped push through a new ladder truck for the safety of the Village of Mamaroneck. And that saves the Village of Mamaroneck tremendous amounts of money. Rybrook, Portchester, Town of Mamaroneck, Harrison, they spend $2-3 million a year, and that's how you save money. But the other thing is you also have to look at alternatives, and it's a fine balance. What you do is you look at your assets that you have. You look for revenue generators, such as parking. You look for possible tier parking in that sense. You look for a restaurant in Harbor Island. And you do this at out cost to the Village of Mamaroneck. There are proposals that are already before the Village of Mamaroneck, where the Village of Mamaroneck maintains the ownership and has revenue, but most important, you do this without changing the character of the Village of Mamaroneck, thereby keeping everybody here. Because the key that the Village of Mamaroneck has is its diversity, and you want to keep all people here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms.
I
Ryan?
would certainly look at something, a surcharge for recreation. I know that in Rye, all the sports teams were charged, I believe it was 5%. Each team was charged an extra, each child 5% when they joined a team. And all of that money went toward upgrading the parks, and I think we can do the same thing. It's a very small, we could do 3 to 5%. We could raise some money, we can put it in a dedicated fund to make sure that our parks are kept up. I think we can look at sharing some of the services, and I've recently recommended that we look into asking the town if we might be able to contract with them or to share with them their conservationists, because we don't have one. And certainly one way to raise money is through some of the environmental initiatives that I think we can work on together, the town and the village. But at any rate, we have our village manager and our assistant manager working on environmental initiatives, and if we had someone, and they're great at it, but it takes them away from their job. So if we could share some services that make sense, we can also upgrade our assessor's office. We can do some user fees, and those are the ways I would first look at it, by sharing a conservationist, by upgrading the tax assessor's office, by putting in a surcharge, and by looking at increasing user fees, as we've discussed, according to the cost of living index each year.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan.
You're welcome.
The next audience question comes from George McCutcheon. I know I got that wrong.
Migradichin.
Can you correct me? Huh?
Mergadich, yeah.
Mergadichin. It's attractive, but not readable by me.
That's close enough for government
225 Orienta Avenue. And his question is, what plans have you implemented and what future plans do you have to help flood victims in the village? How do you plan to take action which will be effective? How can we get more funding for projects? Ms. Ryan, you first, please.
Well, we were told the other night at the village board meeting that we've missed the boat on several grants. In checking, we didn't miss the boat. The boat went out on some of them and will come in again, and when it comes in again, we'll have applications for our residents. And on others, we can't apply because we don't have an all-hazard mitigation plan. We got a letter today from our county executive that said that in a meeting earlier this summer with the Army Corps of Engineers, they expressed their dislike of the Army Corps' survey, and that they did not feel that the plans that the Army Corps was proposing were appropriate. It sounds very much to me like they are not going to support anything other than a very small project. So that really means that we better start looking at what we can do as a community on our own. And as I've mentioned, we need to be proactive and self-sufficient. We need to, and we have written for the all-hazard waiver. We need to do a citizen response team that will come out before the floods, and we need to make sure that we educate our people on Verizon, Cablevision, some of the social networks, that we hold some seminars to show them what they need to do, how they can do it, what products there are out there that can help them to prepare their homes for floods.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan.
You're welcome.
Yes, the reason that we missed out on those applications and the possibility of people that have just recently been flooded is because Tony Ryan, who was on the board in 2007, 2008, did not fill out those forms. So there's a direct result on that. But more important than that, when we look at flooding, again, after taxes, the biggest impact that you have in the village of Mamaroneck, you have to look at on three levels. One's the federal level, which is the Army Corps of Engineers. They've already spent $18 million in studies. This is the third or fourth study. They're going to come in with a plan that's going to cost the village $80 and $90 million. We won't be able to afford it. Unfortunately, that's dealing with the federal government. Then you go with state and county funds, which they are hurting just as much because everything is dumped down to them from the federal government. Unfortunately, they dump it down on us. But I will say, and I'm very proud of the fact, that for the first time in over 30 years, the village of Mamaroneck has taken action. Previously, when I was attending board meetings before I was elected, the previous board and the previous mayor kept saying we can't do anything, we can't go into the river because the Army Corps of Engineers don't like it. The first meeting as mayor, I asked the Army Corps of Engineers, is there anything the village can do that would affect that? They said no. Whatever you can do, you go ahead and do it. We put $100,000 into the budget. We went into the rivers. We dredged, someone says not dredge, we removed silt. In reality, we dredged the river. And we took out 6 to 8 feet just by MEMS on the post road, and that's what we'll continue to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenblum.
A lot to talk about in floods.
Hmm?
It's a lot to talk about in flooding.
Yeah, well, you have your opportunity now if you so choose. Did you have the opportunity to respond to that? I closed my notes too quickly.
Respond to which?
The last question about the, yeah, you
Yes,
did,
you
right?
did.
Okay, forgive me. Okay, now this is the final statement by each candidate, and we will go in the same order in which we began, which is that Ms. Ryan will speak first and Mr. Rosenblum will close. Ms. Ryan, a minute and a half.
First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, LMC-TV, and residents here, and those watching at home. There are a couple of things that were said tonight that I find very disturbing. I have a script here that I was going to use, but I think I'm going to just tell you. The mayor has made some very, very disturbing comments. I have no conflict of interest when it comes to having voted against asphalt versus gravel. I don't know what that means, conflict of interest, but he should drive down Waverly Avenue and see all of the asphalt that has been poured from one end to the next. And then he should tell me what my conflict is. I don't understand some of the comments he made about things that should have happened when I was on the board. There was a Republican mayor in 2007. Why didn't he advise his board of the initiatives that we could have taken? And if you were coming to all the meetings, why didn't you do it? At any rate, we have some, I do want to be your mayor because I think that I bring a very special people, I bring special people skills to the board, and I think that I can serve this village at a time when we need somebody who knows how to plan for the future, who cares about openness and transparency, and who really, really believes that the people of this village deserve to have a better, more approachable government.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. And you, Mr. Rosenblum, last word?
Fine, we'll go right to the question of transparency. The previous board did not allow anyone to participate in the public process. There was no democracy in the village of Mamaroneck. The first meeting I did, I changed that around. Anyone could talk, and to this day, the irony is all those that complain the most about it are the very ones that come to the meeting. As long as I am mayor, there will be an open meeting. I don't care if you agree or disagree with me. The entire method of a true democracy is to have people air their opinions. You may even change your own or amend your point. But I will, without going into a long dissertation, people that live in the village of Mamaroneck that are new and have lived here for a long time are very aware of the problems, what's going on. They know the difference between Trustee Ryan and myself. Again, I am extremely proactive versus reactive, as you can tell by the comments tonight. I can tell you that I believe the village of Mamaroneck in the past 2 years, if you agree, has blossomed tremendously, that it continues to grow. And I will end it by saying that I think that's been endorsed by CNN Magazine, who did a study and rated the top 100 best small towns in America, and the village of Mamaroneck was number 60. This is without input. And I would also note that the village of Mamaroneck is number 1 in New York State. It is number 1 now, and if you vote for myself and Lou, we will continue to be number 1 and continue to blossom and grow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Erin. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you, LMC-TV. And everybody, remember to vote. It's your right. Do it.
Okay, thanks to both of the candidates. And let's give them a round of applause. Thanks a lot. Seats, we're now in phase 3 of our multi-phased evening. We are going to be having our conversation with two candidates for village trustee. They are Scott Dufault on my right, and to my left, Louis Santoro. Mr. Dufault is running on the Democratic line, and Mr. Santoro is the Republican incumbent. As we've done in the other conversations, we drew lots prior to this, and Mr. Santoro will have the opening statement, and followed by Mr. Dufault. Each candidate has a minute and a half in which to respond. We have our trustee timekeeper with her signage, which will give you a 30-second warning as opposed to 30-minute warning. And if you just keep your eye on her, and again, you can finish your sentence but not your paragraph. So please, Mr. Santoro, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight to support the candidates for office in this year's coming election. As many of you well know, I'm a long lifetime resident of the Village of Mamaroneck and volunteered in this community for over 45 years. However, I wanted to get more involved, and I was inspired to get more involved in our local government. Over 2 years ago, I ran for trustee and was elected, and since that time, I truly enjoyed giving back to the community an active role. The reason I was first inspired to get involved in this community is I believe Mamaroneck, the community I love, grew up in, and raised my own family in, was not moving in the right direction. I can no longer sit back and watch things destroying my village. In the time that Mayor Rosenblum and I have took office, the Village of Mamaroneck has been rated as the 60th best community to live in the Village of Mamaroneck. CNN Money Magazine has rated our community as such, and is the only village in New York State in the top 100. CNN stated, the restaurants, the businesses, activities, volunteers, and the beauty of the village that make this rating possible. Both Mayor Rosenblum and myself have worked hard to achieve these attributes, and if re-elected, we will continue to work hard to keep the Village of Mamaroneck as a top place to live, work, and raise your family in. I find it very fitting that we're here tonight ready to tackle the tough issues and present new ideas for keeping Mamaroneck first. What I've learned through hard work that is putting our minds to a task and working together, we can achieve whatever goals we set for our village. The village is something we all must do as concerned residents of the Village of Mamaroneck. I know I am energized and ready to commit to another 2 years in helping make the right decisions for the Village of Mamaroneck. These are my goals, and with your support, I know this will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Mr. Dufault?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Scott Dufault. I grew up in the village of Mamaroneck. My grandfather lived on Oakhurst Road, and my grandma, and they sold their house to my mom and dad. I grew up on Oakhurst Road, and all of my family attended local schools and benefited from the natural beauty and opportunities that Mamaroneck so richly offers. I'm an attorney, and I've worked as a litigator in criminal cases, appellate cases, and some civil litigation. And it is this experience that I hope to bring to the Board of Trustees. Frequently, the board has to decide legal issues. They are a legislative body. They make the law, and they vote on the implementation of laws. They improve or change our existing laws, and as well, most of what they deal with is in terms of business, has to do with contracts, multiple contracts. All of these things involve legal issues quite directly, and my legal training would be a help to the village. I have enjoyed meeting so many people who live in the village during our campaign walkabout, which has set me to thinking how and what I would specifically like to do for the village. I would like to improve the recreational opportunities for our children and all residents. Particularly for their children, there are no facilities where they can easily gather other than the Harbor Island Pavilion, which I understand that Norm wants to turn into a restaurant. I think it should be for the kids. I think it should be a place for kids to go, not a restaurant.
Thank you, Mr. Dufault.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have our lead questions. And the first one is regarding the tax cap. The tax cap law, which set a 2% limit, permits municipalities, but not school districts, to override the limit. Given the limit, what will your approach be for the 2012-13 budget year? Will you seek to override the tax cap for the coming budget year by adopting a local law? Under what circumstances can you envision overriding the 2% limit? Mr. Defoe?
All right. Well, the thing about the 2% tax cap, I understand Norm and Mr. Santoro claim that they held the taxes to 0.35%. And that was all they increased the taxes. They were going to try to increase the taxes, not at all, but they managed to keep it very low. But in fact, what happened is they went into the reserve fund, and that's how they paid and didn't manage to raise the taxes. Well, what is the reserve fund there for? It's there for the residents of the village, to protect the village in times of need. Is that really a tax diminution? Lessening the taxes? I don't think so. So obviously, if you start off right now, the amount of obligations that the town has, we already start off with a 4% tax increase. That's what we need just to pay the existing, my understanding is just to pay the existing contractual obligations that we have. We obviously cannot afford to raise taxes if we don't have to. And we have to look very carefully to find ways not to do that. But at the same time, we have to be realistic, and we have to also face what our situation is.
Thank you, Mr. Defoe. Mr. Santoro?
To me, that's an easy question. When we had the majority of the board in 2010, our tax increase was 0.35%. At that time, the reserve was 1.3 million. Today is actually 6.2 million. We have doubled the reserve. So my opponent, I don't know where you got those facts from. I got the facts from the clerk treasurer's office, and the facts speak for themselves. This past year, the budget came in at 4.85%. The mayor and myself came up with a proposal to lessen that to 1.35%, and the majority voted that down. 2% tax cap for Norm and myself is not an issue, because both times we've come under that, and we're willing to do it again next year.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. The next lead question is about flooding. The village once again suffered heavy flooding damage during the recent extreme weather events. What actions do you see the various government entities need to take to alleviate the conditions which result in flooding? What are the obstacles to taking these actions, and what would you do to overcome those obstacles? Mr. Santoro, please.
Last year in 2010, in the budget was approximately $85,000 for dredging or removing the silt, which the first time was done in 22 years. That was a proposal made by the majority at that time, when Norm and myself were on the board. And it relieved a lot of flooding, where times when we had rain that we should have flooded that we didn't flood because of those actions. This year, $100,000 was put into that budget. We're looking at removing the Jefferson Avenue Bridge, which will probably start hopefully the early 2012, weather permitting. The county is going to remove on Anita Lane, the wing on the bridge. That's going to help it. We've been active, just like the mayor said. We spoke to the Army Corps of Engineers, and anything we will do to alleviate, to help our residents, will not impact the study. And we're going to continue to push for that. One thing that was just started recently was an inventory of flooding of houses and businesses and stuff. For the last 7 years, nothing has been put in place. We're finding out now people have been flooded that nobody knew about, because they're stepping forward now, filling out the forms, and making the village aware of flooding issues that they're having.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Mr. Defoe, the issue of flooding in the village?
The incumbent mayor claims that they've been dredging, which in fact they have been. However, my understanding is that it is actually only dredging if the material that's taken out, the silt and so forth, is taken out of the harbor and placed somewhere out in the sound or in the ocean or wherever. What's really happened is that material has been removed and then put on the side of the harbor, not in the channel. Well, the first good rain makes the silt come down. I'm not an engineer, but that's my understanding. What really actually happens is the material goes back down into the channel again, and it fills up in a little while. Not only that, but when I came back to Mamaroneck in '97, there was a lot of dredging going on. So I don't know where they got, I mean, I live in Shore Acres, and I know because I used to hear it going on at night. So there was dredging before the dredging that was done by the Republican incumbents. So I would just, that's all I would say at this point. Obviously, flooding is something that's not going to go away. So we need to really try to act as a community and try to lessen its impact. And I think Tony has had some really excellent ideas to try to involve the community directly.
Thank you, Mr. DeFeo. Our next question is relating to preservation of open space. The village recently passed a temporary moratorium on open space development on certain properties in order to consider what changes might be warranted to protect our remaining open spaces. What actions would you support to preserve the limited open spaces in the village? Mr. DeFeo?
Well, I think what we need to do is have a plan. And a plan requires some study. It doesn't require shooting from the hip. You look at Greenwich, and Greenwich is a fine community, but if you look at the harbor there, it's kind of a ribbon of concrete around the waterfront to a great degree, and we need to be careful that that doesn't happen here. And that's why, by the way, we all voted. I mean, all the board, including the mayor and Mr. Santoro, voted for the building moratorium. So obviously, I think we all agreed that we need to do planning, and that planning is something that should be going on.
Thank you.
I have to say.
Mr. Santoro?
For the record, I was the only trustee. It was a 4-1 vote. I voted against it. Okay?
You're right. You did.
And the reason why I voted against it was one of your points. There was no plan. So that's why I voted against it, and I will continue to vote against it until the proper channels are in place where we can look to make the right decisions and do it as a whole and just not selective. Thank you.
See, I thought that agreement was going to lead in perfectly to this next question.
Okay.
Oh, well. This is from Marianne Barry. Okay, thank you. And you're here? And I said her name incorrectly? Sorry.
Excuse me.
You guys got to learn how to write more better, I think. I'll accept responsibility. What specifically makes you different from your opponent? So, Mr. Santoro, why don't you take that one on first?
What makes me different than my opponent? Well, tonight's the second time I've seen my opponent. I haven't seen him at any meetings, village functions, or anything. So he introduced himself to me back in, I think, in June at the meeting, and other than tonight, it's the last time I've seen him. When I decided to run for my position in 2009, I attended every board meeting, land use meeting, work session, to get a feel for the position, to get some more experience. My related experience speaks for itself. I've been involved in the Village of Mamaroneck community my entire life, unlike my opponent.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Mr. DeFeo, can you define differences between you and Mr. Santoro?
Yes, I've been an attorney for many years. I've been dealing with legal issues, and certainly what's occurred with the litigation that's occurred in Mamaroneck, the amount of money that has been paid out in judgments, settlements. It's a serious burden on the taxpayers, and I believe that I could be a real asset to the community, to the village, to the board of trustees, were I there, because I do have a keen legal training, and I do believe I could help resolve some of those issues and advise on some of those issues. One of the things that Tony has been recommending as a kind of thing in the law, we have a thing called continuing legal education. And we need that with the land use boards, because a lot of the claims have been made against the land because of bad decisions that have been made in the land use boards. And I would state that Norm wanted to have the mayor wanted to have be able to reassign people on the land zoning boards if there was an absence, which could be dangerous precedent.
Thank you. And with all due respect, despite the fact having, not said your name properly, I'd appreciate your quiet during the answers to the candidates. Okay, the next question is about dog walking. Many municipalities surrounding the village, including Larchmont, New Rochelle, Harrison, and Rye, allow some form of dog walking in specified areas of public property, whether leashed or unleashed, for free or by paying for a permit. Do you believe that dog walking should be allowed at Harbor Island Park, and under what conditions? Mr. Defoe?
Well, I have a dog, and I think I would love to have my dog Roxy be able to walk in Harbor Island, but I think it's probably not such a good idea. There are adequate places for the dogs to walk, and so I would not support that.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a problem with the goose excrement as it is in the Harbor Island. It's all over the place. So we don't want dogs to add to the problem, I would say.
Nobody's picking up after their goose. Mr. Santoro, dog walking?
Yeah, we do have a dog walking park in Mamaroneck. We have it on Rushmore Avenue. We had some residents come forward to the board saying that they wanted to have a dog walking park at Harbor Island when the kids were playing ball and stuff. So the mayor got some people together, some people from different areas, actually from Florence Park area, Orienta, and I believe Harbor Heights area, and they came up with this plan that the board voted a 5-0 favor for a dog walking park that we have down on Rushmore Avenue. Now, other parks have that because kids are playing there, and the feeling was that these dogs are on leashes, and the kids, there might be some chances dogs would be left loose and stuff. So with some clear thinking, volunteers that came forward, we do now have a dog walking park in Mamaroneck. It's at Harbor Island on Rushmore Avenue.
Thank you. Hot off the presses. From John Hofstetler. Did I get that one right? Yeah. From 304 Prospect Lane. This question is to both. What do you think of a 2% open contribution on a property sale in the village that would go toward purchasing open space and recreation facilities and ensuring continued waterfront access? Mr. Santoro?
I'm not in favor of taxing the taxpayers any more than they're paying now. That 2% to people who are on a fixed income, who are seniors, have enough expenses, and the way the economy is right now, taxing anybody at this time is not a good idea, whether it's 2% or 1% or 5%. The budget last year under the majority of the Democrats was 4.85. That speaks for itself. That's enough taxing for our residents.
Okay, how about you, Mr. Defoe?
If I understood the question correctly, that refers to a 2% tax on a sale.
A transfer tax.
Transfer tax, yeah.
Right?
I would support that probably because it's a one-time thing. It often can be written right into the mortgage of the people that are buying. It doesn't come out of the seller's pocket, I don't believe. But in any case, I would support that because I think we obviously need some form of new funding, and that's the kind of thing that's not something that is going to be constantly adding to your taxes. It would not. It would be a one-time transfer, and we need new sources of revenue, clearly. So I would support that, probably.
Thank you, Mr. Defoe. Harbor Island. What is your vision for the future of Harbor Island Park, and how does Sport Time fit into it? Mr. Defoe?
Well, Sport Time has a license to operate the tennis bubble there. I play tennis there. I enjoy it. I've enjoyed it for many years. I don't know that I would have supported the type of license and the extent that of the license which they granted to Sports Time, but I was not on the board. That's a decision that was made. It's a contract, and contracts have, as we all know, certain legal ramifications. If you try to abrogate a contract unless somebody's really in breach of a contract, you're going to get sued. So I think we need, and Sport Time has done a good job of running the tennis bubble. So I'm in favor of allowing them to continue operating the tennis bubble. The real thorn is their right or to build an additional structure or an additional sort of sports center, like an indoor soccer field or sports complex, and that we still have to hash out. And there's a lot of negotiation which needs to be done, I think, even now with respect to that. I would like to see the Harbor Island Pavilion be utilized for kids, for them to be able to have a place, because there really isn't any place for younger people that's a community resource where they can go. I would really be in favor of that. I mean, it would obviously be accessible to older people too, not just the kids, but I would favor that rather than like a restaurant.
Thank you, Mr. Defoe. And you, Mr. Santoro?
Contract is a contract which Sports Time has. They have the right to build where they are. In 2007, before I was on the board, their initial contract was up, and the board at that time had a chance to void the contract and make any necessary changes that they felt at the time. Sports Time has been very patient. 10 years, they have a right to build where they are. It's going to come to the point where somebody's not going to be happy with what their actions are going to be. They're going to build what they're entitled to build, and the village is going to have to live with it, because in 2007, the board had a chance to void the contract, and that was not done. So whether they're going to be behind the sewage treatment plant that the previous board asked them to do, even though their contract didn't, when it was awarded, it wasn't that. That's where the technicalities are right now. So the board has to make a decision. We're trying to move forward with this to put an end to this 10-year dilemma, to let them build and do what they have to do. And it's thinking outside the box. They generate over $400,000 a year to the village for taxpayers. That's thinking outside the box. That's not going to hurt our taxpayers with any extra additional funding. That money is put into the budget every year, whether it's $300,000 or $350,000. That's projected. That's going to come from revenue. So that's one thing that I've always talked about, thinking outside the box. I'm in favor of having Sports Time continue in the village and doing a great job for the residents and for any other people that use that facility.
Thank you, Mr. Santorum. Parking. The village of Mamaroneck has become a destination for dining, which has put a strain on the parking capacity of the downtown area. How would you address this situation, Mr. Santoro?
Parking is a big problem in the village since it's become so popular. Last year, the mayor and the board, we were approached by an outside person who was willing to do a parking structure, whether it was behind CVS or on Spencer Avenue, at no cost to the village, put a parking structure up. It would cost maybe $3 to $4 million. The village could negotiate a contract where they were going to take money from the parking, or at the end of a 10 or 20-year period, the facility would turn back over to the village. The majority of the board does not want that. One of the trustees, well, actually, the one who asked the question tonight, was out 11:30 at night counting parking spaces and said there was 187 parking spaces. How many businesses are open in the village at 11:30 at night? 2, maybe 3. The issue is from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, we need parking. I was in the village today with my dad, who's a senior, and it took us 15 minutes driving up and down the avenue to find a parking space at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Parking is an issue. I support what the mayor and the people have brought forward of building a parking structure for the village at no cost to the taxpayers.
I just want to put something out. This is a league question. It wasn't, it didn't come from.
I know.
I thought that's what you indicated.
Okay. No.
Yeah. Mr. Defoe?
Yes, I think that there may be ways that we can utilize some of the parking that is available. For instance, you could use, in the evening, when restaurants are used most of the time, you could even use Harbor Island because there's not that much parking there in the evening, and you could have a little shuttle. That might be something that would work. There's also parking underneath, right next to Molly Spillane's, underneath the apartment buildings, whose name escapes me. In any case, there's parking that's available there. The thing, it's not that the existing board objected necessarily to the idea of maybe utilizing some kind of a parking garage. But the way it was done, it was presented as a fait accompli, as already done. There's one guy, there's one company. I mean, I think there needs to be a study done, and people need to know what the options are, what the costs would be, and that's the way it should be done properly. And it was not done. It was not done that way. It was just brought up without any forewarning to anybody at one of the Board of Trustee meetings. So.
Thank you, Mr. DeFeo.
Thank you.
This is the last of our questions. Quality of life for residents. Aside from flooding, what is the single most pressing quality of life issue facing the village, and what would you do to address it? Mr. DeFeo?
Well, I mean, the economy is in a difficult state, and therefore everybody, because we are all a member of this economy, has some difficulty dealing with that fact. Costs are going up, and taxes have gone up, and it's a problem for everyone. There are people that have investments, have in many cases lost a lot of money. People's 401ks in 2008, 2009, their pensions, all those things make it imperative that we decide what it is we want to do with our village. What services, what is important to us as a community, the quality of our life, and we need to preserve the quality of our life, because part of part of what's great about Mamaroneck is that we have this beautiful harbor, that we have these beautiful wetlands, we have these wonderful parks, and they belong to everyone. So if we start selling them piecemeal, leasing them out too much, licensing them out, we're going to lose some of the quality. If we keep building around our harbor, the zoning laws will change, and we won't be able to prevent anyone from building big buildings on the side right on our harbor, and it won't be the same.
Thank you, Mr. DeFeo. Mr. Santoro?
Quality of life issues is keeping our residents that are there now, our seniors, our different diversities of nationalities we have in the village. Right now, the village is a very popular place, whether it's the Avenue, whether it's Mamaroneck Shares, Mamaroneck Historical Society, the street fair. These are things that are keeping the people here, so it's our job as elected officials to make sure we keep them here. So the quality of life would be to keep our taxes down. We merged our seniors program a few years ago. That was one thing that was done there at the town. We still have a senior down the harbor building down there. Excuse me. So I feel the quality of life is moving in the right direction. I voted against a moratorium because I felt it wasn't a complete item. If it comes back complete, and then I will look at it to quality of life to keep our buildings and keep the village the way it is.
Thank you. Gentlemen, you may now make your final statements, and as said earlier, we will go in the same sequence in which you did your opening statements, which would then lead Mr. Santoro to start. A minute and a half, please.
Voting for me, you know what you're getting. I'm the type of person, I'll take my jacket off, roll up my sleeves. When we had Hurricane Irene, I was out there for almost 24 hours, maybe 26 hours, getting involved, seeing how our people work, seeing what improvements can be made, brought them back to the village manager for some ideas. With me, you know what you'll get. I've been here my whole life. My family's been here my whole life. I raised my children here. They went through the schools here. I went through the schools. I've been involved with Town of Mamaroneck Fire Department as a past chief for 35 years. I wasn't a past chief for 35 years. I was a past member for 35 years. Still active member. Coach Little League Soccer, Little League Baseball. I'm the liaison to Parks and Rec, Fire Department, EMS, Chamber of Commerce. I'm retired. I have the time, I have the dedication, and I have the willpower to keep going. Just one comment I'd like to clear up what my opponent made about dredging. I think down where he lives in Shore Acres, that wasn't dredging, that was a seawall that was being put up at American Beach Yacht Club at that time. So the only dredging that was done was done last year in the last 22 years.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Any final comments, Mr. DeFeo?
Yes, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting together this forum, allowing candidates to discuss the issues. I appreciate the opportunity for the residents to get to know me better. And it is interesting to note that all 4 candidates from the village of Mamaroneck were born and raised here, including myself. So that in that regard, we are all equal. What may not be equal is the experience and qualifications that we bring to the positions. Tony Pergola Ryan for sure has background and people skills to be an outstanding mayor. The people of Mamaroneck Village know her and respect her. She does her homework, she does not make impulsive decisions, and she never loses sight of the long-term relationships that she has built. People matter to Tony, but she won't curry their favor by promising something that she can't deliver. Just take a look at the Village Mamaroneck Democrats website. You'll see what kind of things are promised and what is really delivered by the current administration. I'm new to politics, I admit that, and I do not have Tony's level of experience. I do have a keen legal mind, and I'm prepared to work with all residents to resolve the issues that we have in the village. I ask you to allow me to have this opportunity to give back to this beautiful community, the home of my grandfather, the home of my 88-year-old father, and now today, mine and my family's hometown. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, we're heading into the home stretch here. We've got our 3 candidates for Mamaroneck Town Council. Starting from my right, your left, we have Abby Katz running on the Democratic line. Next to her is incumbent Phyllis Whitner on the Democratic line as well. And to my left, Seth Marcus. The drawing of lots was a little bit different, so just everybody up here thinks it's fine, so just follow along with us. It'll all be good for everybody. The rules again remain the same in that each candidate will have a minute and a half opening statement, 30-second warning from our trustee stop sign, a 30-second warning from our trustee timekeeper, who's going to get tennis elbow by the end of the night here. And then lead questions from the floor, each response a minute and a half. And we're going to start, as I said, first with Phyllis Whitner.
Thank you. Thank you to the League for having this debate, and it's wonderful to see an audience. I think those of you who watch our meetings know what a pleasure it is to see all of you there. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, because the obvious question is, why are you running again? I've been in office for what will be 16 years, and of that time, I have served as deputy supervisor to Valerie O'Keefe for 7.5 years, which obviously means I bring a lot of history and experience to the board, which I'm free to give them. In that time, I have brought in $2,700,000 in grants, I'm very proud to say, which also means that I know my way around, if I may put it that way, the Department of State and the Department of Environmental Conservation, and I've discovered that people still know me there. They take my calls and they supply information, and it's invaluable. I've been the liaison to every board and commission over those years, while I'm currently liaison to the Fire Department and Coastal Zone Management Commission. I know all the functions of the boards and how they are supposed to function.
Thank you, Ms. Whitner. Next, we'll have Ms. Katz. A minute and a half, please.
Hi, I'm Abby Katz. I've lived here in the town of Mamaroneck with my husband David and my 2 children for 14 years now. And because I love this town so much, I decided, hey, why not run for town board? So what can I bring to the town board? I have over 14 years in the financial service industry. Obviously, this provides me with a useful skill set that will be needed in these tough financial times. I'm used to working for budgets, and I'm used to looking for ways to save money, both professionally and personally. I've been very involved in the community the entire time I've lived here. This started with my involvement with the Larchmont Gardens Civic Association. This is the largest homeowners association in the town, and I've served as president, and I'm a current board member. Through my work with the LGCA, I've appeared numerous times before the town board lobbying for our neighborhood's needs. This involvement has made me familiar with the town board's activities. I'm up to speed on what they're spending money on, what projects are up, and what people are complaining about. I'll be able to hit the ground running. I've also been active in the food pantry in Mamaroneck, which has exposed me to a whole other area of community needs. I'm the Murray Avenue PTA treasurer. I'm ready to give this board my full-time commitment. I don't have another job. I'm here, I'm around, I'm available, I'm accessible, and I'm ready to be the voice of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Katz. Mr. Marcus.
Hi, I'm Seth Marcus. I also would like to thank the League for hosting this event. And I'd also like to start with some biographical information, since I am new to politics as well. I'm a 14-year resident of the town. I moved here in 1997 with my wife. And we're currently raising 2 kids, both of whom attend the school system here. I have a son who just started Homics, and my daughter is in 3rd grade at Murray Avenue. Professionally, I'm a practicing attorney. I'm a litigator. I regularly practice before all the area federal and state courts. I'm also the managing partner of a law firm that I co-founded. And in that regard, I bring both legal and business experience to the board. Why am I running? The short answer is I think I have something to offer, and I'd like to continue working for the community. My record in community service so far is I'm currently serving on the board of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Little League, and I'm also a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've enjoyed this experience. I'd like to build on it and continue to compile a record of community service. I think both my legal experience and my business experience are elements that I can add to the board and contribute to discussions and problem solving going forward.
Thank you so much, all of you. We will begin our question segment. The first couple will be from the League, and the first one addresses the tax cap. What is your strategy for keeping the town's budget within the newly elected 2% tax cap? Are there any circumstances in which you would consider voting to override the tax cap? Mr. Marcus, would you like to start that?
Sure. I think it's important to stay within the 2% tax cap. I think it's a good law. I think it was passed for an important purpose. Obviously, the taxes in Westchester County specifically are way out of line with what the rest of the country experiences, and the tax cap is an effort to address that. So there are rare circumstances, I suppose, but for the most part, I would favor staying within it, which will really require making some hard decisions in how we're going to maintain the quality services that we now enjoy. Nonetheless, if the tax cap were to be overridden for any reason, I think it would be important that the board made a compelling case to the community, and I would be a critical voice of it, and certainly it would be well vetted before it was made to the community.
Thanks, Mr. Katz. Marcus, forgive me. Ms. Whitner, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, it's a very appropriate question since the town board had an all-day budget work session today from 8:30 in the morning until about 5 o'clock? 6 o'clock. I stand corrected. First, I think it's important to clarify that the tax cap applies to the tax levy, not the amount of taxes that each taxpayer pays. The state imposed this cap, but at the same time, they didn't remove any of the mandates that they've passed down to us for health care, pensions, etc., the largest items in the budget. We certainly have, as we demonstrated today, worked responsibly in trying to keep taxes down. But we're equally determined that they don't have a impact on the services that we provide. We would like to hear from all of you about what services you like best or what you want us to keep.
Thank you, Ms. Whitner. Ms. Katz?
Yeah, I'd like to pick up with what Ms. Whitner was saying. When the state passed this 2% tax cap, they promised that they would provide relief from state mandates. These costs of pension and health care can include year-to-year increases of 20% or more. The promised relief was not granted, so the community is really burdened with making some tough choices. That said, how will I handle it? The way all of us do. It's going to take some tough choices, and we're going to sit down, just like they've been doing, and go through the budget line by line. It'll require making decisions. What's a required service? What's a desired service? What can we possibly defer for next year? And what can be cut? There's no gimmick to it. We're going to do everything possible, and I would do everything possible to stay within this limit. But the town didn't need a 2% tax cap to be reminded of its fiscal responsibility. Our town's been keeping its tax increases low every year. The prior few years, it's been low single digits, much lower than some neighboring communities. It's also important to keep in mind that while the town collects tax for everybody, the school, the county, and the town, For your tax bill, the town's portion is really only about 22% of your total taxes. And if you live in the village, your town's portion is really only about 2%. So when you look at your tax bill, you have to realize who's responsible for these costs.
Thank you very much. Our next question is about merger of services. What is your position on the possible merger of Rhinebeck with the town of Mamaroneck? What do you think would be the effect on tax rates and personnel expenditures? What effect would it have on fire, police, and sanitation services? Ms. Katz, would you like to talk to that about that first?
But when we talk about consolidation or mergers of any time, what we really need to look about is sharing services. This is generally where most of the savings can come in. The town has been a leader in providing merged services or shared services. Some of these are shared among all three municipalities with both Village of Larchmont and Village of Mamaroneck, and some are just with one of these municipalities. Examples of this include our Joint Sanitation Committee, our Coastal Zone Committee, LMC-TV, which we're watching right now. The decision to whether or not to consolidate really requires a careful study to determine if the cost savings are really there. Sometimes sharing services can provide greater savings than a true consolidation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcus, Consolidated?
Sure. Well, once again, when you're talking about a consolidated model, in theory you should have some savings because you have a greater number of people contributing, and hopefully your services are being used more efficiently as they're spread over that larger group. By the same token, it is an issue that requires careful study, and consolidation is never an easy process, as there are always differing constituencies that are going to have a stake and objections in perceived loss of territory or discretion over certain issues. So these sorts of marriages are never easy, but there can, particularly in an environment where fiscally things are becoming far more challenging in terms of providing the services that we all need. I think we need to be open to the possibility that we do look for opportunities to consolidate and seek efficiencies that way.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. There are certain consistencies of issues, of course, overlapping the town and the village, and flooding is certainly one of them. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. Oh, forgive me, Ms.
I would
Whitner.
reiterate a great deal of what Ms. Katz had to say. But I think you specifically asked about Rhinebeck, and that is
yes,
not the same as asking for cooperation. Just thank you, Carolyn. The Village of Mamaroneck. Right now, we have great relationship with the village. We share a senior center. We certainly have mutual aid in our fire departments. Same thing with the Village of Larchmont. So we've come a long way with cooperation. But I'm not sure that we would be in a position to, you asked about consolidating with Rhinebeck. And
Possible
I'm
merger,
not sure
yes.
that we are ready to take that on.
Thank you. My apologies for overlooking you. Flooding. Once again, Mamaroneck has experienced flooding conditions in the wake of Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee. What are the immediate steps and the long-term steps that the town needs to take in anticipation of future flooding in the community? Ms. Whitner, I have to apologize, so you get to go first.
Of course, you've picked a subject near and dear to my heart. We have just finished a local project, thanks to a grant with the county, at Gardens Lake, where which we know will help the Village of Mamaroneck in their flooding problems. But we're victims of our geography. We are at the bottom of the Long Island Sound watershed. And this means that unless we have intermunicipal cooperation with the municipalities above us, for instance, White Plains, Scarsdale, New Rochelle, we will never solve flooding problems without that. We have to work together to know just how much impervious surfaces they're willing to cover, We have to really work collectively with the villages and the neighboring municipalities in order to achieve the resolution of the problems. I was fascinated about earlier statement that a river has been dredged in Mamaroneck. I have never heard of dredging without disposing of the sediment, and I can't imagine today where one could dispose of sediment. I can go on all night about this because of grants that we've had, and that's the issue. That's the problem that you face. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Katz, would you like to talk about the flooding issues in Mamaroneck?
I'm going to echo a lot of what Phyllis has said is, we are a victim of our geography. The rainwater doesn't just come from the town of Mamaroneck. The water is coming from all parts of the county, and it's going to require a county, state, and federal solution to move forward. I think the town has been very proactive in doing what it can to mitigate flooding. The work on the Larchmont Gardens Lake was a good first step, and I think residents felt that it did alleviate some of the flooding in the most recent storm. But it's going to take more than just local efforts. We need to work with our county officials, and I think this is why Judy Myers is a great ally to have on the county legislator, and to work with them to get bigger projects that can really make an impact. In the short term, I think the town's immediate response to flooding is always excellent. They're always out there warning residents ahead of time when flooding's going to occur. They take whatever steps they can to help residents, to help people pump water out when needed, and I think our services have been excellent. I saw the highway department out there clearing stormwater drains ahead of the storm, and I think they're doing everything they can at their level and also seeking the help they need at the higher levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Katz. Mr. Marcus.
As much as I'd like to distinguish myself on the issue, I think I'm probably going to end up echoing a lot of what's been said already. Flooding is a problem that's been a long time in the making, and it's a problem that's going to be there as a consequence of geography. I like to talk about these problems as more managed problems than necessarily solved problems. And I think that the engineering activities that are going to make an impact are, again, nothing that we're going to be able to do on our own. We're going to have to work closely with upriver communities and make sure that the money is put in places where the improvements can be made that can make a difference. But it's always going to be there. We're always going to have to be vigilant. We're always going to have to do the small things that are going to ameliorate the problem in terms of keeping existing structures up to date, although it may not be such a small thing, but it is an obvious thing. And really, that's all that can be done about this, on the issue, I think.
Thank you. We have a question from the floor from Don DeRigo, and I saw him before, so I know he's here, from Soundview Avenue. And this is initially addressed to Ms. Katz. Do you support or are you opposed to revaluation, and why?
I fully support the town's recent decision to move ahead with a full townwide property revaluation. The last time this was done was in 1968. As a result, the tax rolls no longer reflect the fair market value for a large number of the properties. This has caused a lot of people and businesses to challenge their taxes, and it's caused the town and the school district to pay out millions of dollars every year in both legal fees and taxes that have been challenged. I think the town has learned what other communities have done wrong and is taking great steps to make sure that this reval is going to be done correctly, accurately, and efficiently. I think it's strictly a matter of fairness. Everybody should be paying their fair share of taxes based on the fair current market value of their property. This tax reval will enable that to be the case. It'll make budgeting much easier going forward, as we'll have a more accurate view of what our total tax collections will be each year without this huge unknown of what amount's going to be challenged each year and how much we may have to give back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcus, you want to address revaluation?
Sure. Well, revaluation can be a scary topic. The town has already voted to go forward with an information gathering process where they're actually going to collect data and have different properties valued to understand where we are. And a firm has already been retained to do that, so the process has been moving down the line. However, before there needs to be a final vote on the board as to whether or not the assessment role is going to be accepted when this process is completed. And there, I think a very hard look is going to have to be taken as to what the consequences of the revaluation are. I think that you could have situations where people are whipsawed by unexpected and sharp increases in their share of the taxes. And, there can be a certain level of anxiety that goes along with that when they're going through the process as well. However, we want to make sure that this doesn't result in a tax bill being unexpectedly put on people that effectively force them out of the community. So I think that while the steps that are being taken now are positive, the board does need to take a careful look at what the consequences of revaluation is going to be before that assessment role is finally accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. And you, Ms. Whitner.
I would reiterate a great deal of what Ms. Katz said about reval, but we're really talking about a basic fairness here. Since our roles haven't been changed since 1968, there is considerable unfairness. The amount that we've paid out in certiorari claims, small court claims, increases the tax dollars that we have to collect. Somehow you have to make that up. Reval is done all across New York State, and we have been deficient in taking this long to do it. I think that this process will be fair and efficient. There are certainly many meetings that are for informational purpose. I think it'll answer all questions, and I'm happy that we're finally doing this.
Thank you, Ms. Whitner. And this question is addressed to you from Peter Sloan. Thank you. Children at hammocks are not permitted to play on the town-owned fields behind the school during recess. Do you support this?
I'm smiling, and other members of the board are smiling because this was discussed today when the recreation superintendent presented her budget. Those fields have been improved. We spent a fortune years ago in improving the fields to make them suitable for the sports that were to play on them. They're not meant for just running around and tearing up fields. So do I think it's fair? I don't think it's a question of fairness. I think it's a question of what the community wants, and evidently they want a soccer league, and you want hockey, and you want these after school sports, and you can't have both groups satisfied on these very precious grass fields.
Thank you. Ms. Katz, do you have a position on this?
To be honest, it's not something I've studied or am that familiar with, but I would tend to agree. If those fields were used every day by the number of children at hammocks, I think there would be an immediate disrepair, and then we'd be hearing the other side, we can't play our, soccer matches because the field's flooded or the field's muddy and it's not up to league standards. So, it is tempting. You have these fields right there, and it seems logical, but I think it sounds like a good deal of thought has been given to this, and it just can't take the wear and tear that using it for recess would allow. So I would support the continued ban of the use of the fields.
Mr. Marcus, your position on the fields?
Well, this is something that I've grappled with a lot in my involvement with Little League and youth sports. And there is a persistent fields problem in this town. There aren't enough fields to go around. By the same token, I'm not sure it's an either-or issue. I don't think it's either soccer or recess. I think that there has been there's a good possibility for cooperation and use by all concerned parties. Also, there's a ongoing sort of conversation between the towns and the league over, should we keep the fields pristine and what are the effects of use going to be. My feeling is the fields are there for the kids to use. If that results in wear and tear, so be it. If the fields are not as pristine as a result, that is a sacrifice that I think is well worth taking, in the sense that they're there for the purpose of having the kids play on them, and it seems silly for them not to. So I think the town and the school district should find a way for the kids in Hommocks to have a recess that doesn't involve sitting on the concrete, and I think there's very likely a solution that will make sure that the fields are there for soccer as well.
Thanks, Mr. Marcus. Okay. We've got another question addressed to Ms. Whitner. This is from Paul Lennon. Pardon me? No, you did. Did you? I believe, or you identified yourself as such. Ms. Whitner, what efforts have you made as a board member to save the town money through shared services among the 3 municipalities?
We've made great strides, I think, in shared services, as I mentioned earlier, or has been mentioned earlier. Certainly the senior center is a prize, and it's doing beautifully. And we share services with EMS, VAC. Trying to think of all the things we share services. I'm certainly an advocate for sharing services and using each other in a cooperative way, the way we do now. We have, as I mentioned earlier, great rapport now with the, for example, the Village of Larchmont Fire Department and the Town Fire Department. And also we have Village of Mamaroneck backing us up too. So I think there's certainly more to be done with shared services, but we've made great strides to date.
Thanks, Ms. Whitner. Mr. Marcus, would you like to talk about the issue of shared services?
Well, there are some shared services among the municipalities, and I think there probably can be more, and I think it's something that needs to be pushed further. I think there are probably a lot of cost-saving opportunities and efficiencies that are being lost with the municipalities, each running a completely independent police department, largely independent fire departments, although there is some cooperation between Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck, and various other services. There does exist now, I think it was generated in 2010, a comprehensive report that was put out by representatives from the town and both villages that goes into some detail on some of the opportunities that are available in this regard. And I think that report needs to be pulled out, examined carefully, and even if some of the recommendations there are not, if you're not able to implement all of them, then certainly there are probably some of them that can be implemented, and there are probably greater opportunities here that are not being explored.
Thanks, Mr. Marcus. And Ms. Cass?
Like I said earlier, there are a great many services that are currently already shared. I think everybody always looks for the firehouse and the police department, and I think in reality these are things that are very difficult to share and of course require a great deal of study, and it comes down to choices that most people aren't willing to make. They're not willing to close a firehouse or get rid of police detectives or decide who's the fire chief. You know, these decisions can take so much time that you're better off doing the shared service option and working together, and I think this board has shown that it does have good intermunicipal cooperation, and of course, going forward, I think it'll continue to look for more opportunities, and it doesn't have to just be services. It could be equipment. It could be some large truck that you only need to use once or twice a year. You know, it could be equipment shared across the town and village, and I think it's something that would require further study, and I'd be very interested in looking at it going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. this is now a leak question. If elected, what will be your biggest priority as a member of the town council? Mr. Marcus.
Well, I think my lead priority will be fiscal responsibility, being a strong advocate for the taxpayers of the town in maintaining the 2% tax cap. In addition, I think a close eye, for similar reasons, needs to be kept on the revaluation process and make sure that there aren't any radical tax swings that families need to absorb. The reason I say this is taxes in the community are a very real burden, and it's not so much a stingy issue. Do we want to not pay for wonderful services, but what kind of burden are we going to put on families and seniors going forward? And are we driving people out of the community with taxes? So I think on the board, that would be my focus in maintaining a fiscally responsible board that keeps in mind that those public funds are dearly paid for and not to take in more than we absolutely must.
Thank you. Ms. Whitner?
I think our current boards and immediate past boards have looked very closely each year at our taxes. And as was said earlier, your town tax is a very small part of the tax bill. We will, of course, will continue to look at the budget line by line. We do this every year. There's nothing new about this. And it just gets to a point where you have to have feedback from the public of what services they want you to continue, what are you willing to have cut back. One of the areas we do share, which I should have mentioned previously, is sanitation. And that's a very hot subject with our municipalities and a possible place where we could save tax dollars. The question that we're always considering is, what do the residents really want and what would they tolerate in sanitation collection?
Thank you, Ms. Whitner. Ms. Katz?
Since I've been out campaigning, I've been spending a lot of time listening to people. And again, taxes is the most common complaint or item you hear people talking about. So that would obviously be my main focus, is keeping an eye on the budget and being fiscally responsible. The other thing people complain about is streets, and I'm sorry, I can't pave every street in the town if elected. I just can't make that promise. But again, we will be fiscally responsible and come up with a plan to pave streets in an orderly fashion. I'd also like to increase the communication between the town and its residents. I attend these town board meetings, and I can tell you, in general, the only people in the audience is one or two people and Paige, the reporter from the Sound in Town. We've made great strides in putting a lot of information on the town website, and I really encourage residents to go to the website and see everything that's out there. But I'd like to even add more information, more notes of meetings, minutes, and things like that. I think the more informed the community is, the better off we'll all be, and that's another area I'd like to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. What experiences do you have that qualifies you to hold the position of town council member, other than having held this position before if you are the incumbent? We know who that is, so we're not going to give her first shot on that. We'll give that to Mr. Marcus.
Well, I think I have a number of qualifications that will help me be a good board member and a problem solver and a productive member of the board. Most notably, I think a lawyer brings a very good skill set for local government generally. A lawyer, first and foremost, is an advocate. And on the board, the taxpayers and the citizens of the town of Mamaroneck become the people that you are advocating for, and you forcefully fight for their interests. At the same time, a lawyer is a problem solver, which is somewhat an unorthodox way to think of attorneys, I think. But nonetheless, cases come across your desk, and 95% of the time a case is going to settle. And to work through a legal dispute is really an exercise in handling a client and finding a resolution to a difficult problem where you're working against an adversary on the other side, but at the same time you're dealing with an adversary on the other side. And you look for solutions where if you can't make everybody happy, at least everybody is better off for having resolved a tough problem. And I think this in a lot of ways is very analogous to what a board member does and what local government does. Everybody isn't always going to agree on things, but you nonetheless work together and you look for common ground and you make sure that all positions are represented. So I think that is what qualifies.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Katz. Or Ms. Marcus. I'm ahead of myself. You can tell I'm not used to being in government. I'm tired now. I'm not used to meetings go on this late. Ms. Katz.
What was the question?
You forgot the question, I'm sorry.
What would I bring? Okay.
What qualifications and experience?
Okay. Okay, I've previously discussed my work experience. I specifically worked installing software that allowed companies to monitor clients' budgets and client spending and track expenses. Obviously, I spent years doing this, and it's a skill that'll serve me well, monitoring budgets and spending in the town. Additionally, I believe that my community experience is really an asset when it comes to dealing with the town. I've met with people of all ages, all walks of life, and I really think I get a feel for what the people of this town want from their town government. And I think I can be the voice of those people. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly?
One aspect that I have not spoken about, I think I'm a pretty good leader. I've been able to bring together, when I mentioned earlier the importance of bringing municipalities together, one of my grants established the Long Island Sound Watershed Intermunicipal Council. That's 13 Westchester County municipalities who work together mainly on issues of water quality, excuse me, and water quantity. I'm very proud of that association. I was chair of the Coastal Zone Management Commission in the town for many years. You've heard earlier what that commission does. It advocates the local waterfront revitalization plan, the LWRP. So I believe I have other talents, for example, writing, which I've done. I've published history book of conservation in the town. I think I have a lot more to offer.
Thank you. Okay. Merger of services. Apart from programs already established, what ideas and/or plans do you have for the town to work with other shoreline communities to conserve in resources and share expenses? Ms. Katz?
Can we do that already?
I know, what?
I feel we've answered this.
Okay, I sort of agree with you. I completely agree with you.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Parking. What do you think can be done to alleviate the shortage of overnight and guest parking for the apartments along North Chatsworth Avenue? Ms. Katz?
The town, has been working on this problem for a number of years. The most obvious solution they came up with, which was great, was they got that garage built for free, and that provided overnight permitted parking across the street. The next step, the town was able to get, with the help of George Latimer, permission to grant permit-only parking. Now, they haven't moved ahead with this, and I imagine it's undergoing further study, but because we have gotten state approval, that's an option we could use going forward to, if it sounds like it's something that will benefit the residents and they agree with it. So I think it really is, the parking around the apartments is the main issue in the town. We don't control the village parking, that's up to their own municipalities. Furthermore, the town has done its best to enforce, whenever new building is done, they enforce the requirements for off-street parking, so they're doing whatever they can to help alleviate this problem. But we live in a densely populated community, and it is a difficult problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcus?
Well, parking is sort of like flooding, right? It's a managed problem. It's something that's always going to be there, and you're never going to have enough parking spaces. I can't say that I've specifically studied the parking problem around the Chatsworth buildings, but I can certainly see how it would develop. And again, you need to look, as a board member, you need to listen to suggestions from the community and look for every opportunity that presents itself to alleviate what is going to be an ongoing problem. I'm not sure that there's much more I can say about it.
Oh, let's not be so pessimistic. How about you, Ms. Whitner? You can.
Well, as
Give
Ms.
that parking a
Katz
shot.
pointed out, the Myrtle Boulevard deck alleviated a great deal of problems for the apartments on North Chatsworth. In fact, our town clerk, Ms. Battaglia, sitting back there, told us that that we now have parking lot spaces available. There are openings, unheard of, but we have them. So I think that was a great achievement. And as you mentioned, we could put in permit parking only for the apartments, but it turned out the residents really didn't want it. And so we haven't done anything with that permission. Am I correct, Valerie?
We did enforce it on Lester Place.
Ah, right. But we were talking, this was Chatsworth. And so that's, I think we've really done the best job that we can do with no available open space.
We're branching out into new territory, folks. This is from,
I think we're
that's it? Okay, we're not. We are now going to allow you to sum up what you've been saying in a minute and a half. And as I said, the lots are chosen in advance in a pretty arcane method, but it's fair. So we're going to start the minute and a half closing statement by Ms. Katz.
Throughout this campaign, I've met with a lot of supporters, and the first thing they say to me when I say I'm running, they're like, "What, are you crazy?" But then it's quickly followed by, "You'll do a great job." And I have to agree with them. I'd be really excited to serve this town. I really love this community. When we decided to leave New York City, Mamaroneck and Larchmont were the only places we looked to live, and I can't say that we were wrong. Okay. I've been very involved in the community, and I feel that taking public office is my next step in community involvement. I'm committed to keeping costs low and providing the services that this community deserves and expects. I know the other members of the board, and I think I'd get along great with them and help serve this community well. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for providing this opportunity to get my views out there. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And Ms. Wertner.
Yes, while I feel I have made a good contribution to the town in the years that I've served it, there's still more that I can do, and there's still certainly more to be done. We have very difficult decisions coming up. We've all mentioned taxes. The important part to me is not to compromise our way of life. I've also written a few books for the town. I hope you've all seen the History of Conservation, which I'm very proud of. And there too, I would like to continue doing more research about the town and its past. All I can say is that I'm looking at Paige, our faithful reporter, whether work session or town board or whatever. I still feel that there's much more that I can contribute to the town, and I bring a different judgment in many cases, which I think the board highly respects, and we do get along very well. I want to point out to all of you that we have had wonderful collegial boards. We are so lucky in the town of Mamaroneck, and I know we're the envy of many municipalities. I will stop, Carolyn, but I see Valerie sitting over there, And I just must say, for all of us, that we've had a wonderful experience, no fighting. We all express our opinions, and we all
can thank her at the
respect
end of
each
this.
other. Pardon me?
We can thank her at the end of this.
Okay.
Finally, Mr. Marcus?
I don't think this election is so much about who will serve on the town board as it is about whether all parties are going to have a voice on the board. Nancy Seligson, as many of you know, is running unopposed for town supervisor. What this in effect means is come January, there is going to be another vacant seat on the board. And that vacant seat could be filled by either Abby or Phyllis should they lose the election. On the other hand, should I lose the election, it's probably a pretty good chance that the town board will be under the control of a single party. Now, I think that the democratic government on all levels functions better when there's meaningful participation from two parties and that there is an opposition that has a voice. That what this does is it allows, in any government, certain levels of checks and balances to be present that wouldn't be present otherwise. How is the majority going to make a mature decision on an issue when they haven't even heard a cogent opposing argument? I think that this is something that will be absent on the board if I'm not elected. In addition, I think my legal experience is an important element to be represented on the board. I think if I'm not elected for the first time in decades, there'll be no lawyer on the board. I think a lawyer, beyond some of the issues I spoke about before, is also an important liaison to who the town council is and can speak lawyer to them. So,
Thank you very much.
for those reasons, I'd like to thank the league for.
We'll take that one.
I'll thank the league for putting on the event, and I hope I've earned your support on November 8th. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks to all of you, and we'll take a round of applause. Whoa. You're going to have to use a light hand with this. This is our last, your candidate for Mamaroneck Town Supervisor, replacing the long and illustrious career of Valerie O'Keefe, who's sitting in the back there, and Nancy Seligson is running unopposed. So our process is going to be abbreviated, but giving you and the rest of your fellow community members the opportunity to hear her positions through an opening statement. We're going to ask a couple questions from the league, and then she will then follow up with her closing statements. Same timekeeping procedures, a minute and a half for all responses. So please, Ms. Seligson.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nancy Seligson, and I'm running for Town Supervisor for the town of Mamaroneck. I'm excited to become Supervisor of the town to bring my expertise in facilitation and environmental advocacy to improve government efficiency and communication, and to save money by reducing our energy costs, and to encourage our government and citizens to reduce our carbon footprint. Some of the things I have in mind are converting more of our vehicle fleet to hybrids. Also important is updating and improving our ice rink to modernize it and reduce its energy consumption. The ice rink is the #1 energy user in the town. I've been on the town council for 12 years, and I've enjoyed working to serve the community. I was the liaison to all of the land use boards for 10 years, the zoning board, the planning board, and the board of architectural review. I very happily handed those over to other colleagues of mine, and I now get to sit on the Human Rights Committee and Traffic Committee. I've been a resident of Larchmont and Mamaroneck for 23 years, and I started my career of community work and environmental advocacy here. I chaired the Larchmont-Mamaroneck Coastal Zone Management Commission in the 1990s and have held several environmental positions in the county. I currently co-chair the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Long Island Sound Study, and I sit on the County Board of Health. I have a son who's a senior at Mamaroneck High School and 3 stepdaughters, the youngest of whom is a freshman. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Ms. Seligson. The first question is increased recreation fees.
Sorry, I thought you were advocating them.
I am not an advocate. We are nonpartisan. In this difficult economic time, one way many municipalities are helping make ends meet is to increase user fees for public facilities and activities, particularly recreational ones. What steps, if any, would you take to try to lessen the impact of the increased fees on the more disadvantaged members of our community?
We have a great recreation program in the town of Mamaroneck, and we're all very proud of it. We have great staff running it. We have every year increased the fees a little bit in the recreation programs because we needed them from a fiscal point of view to be self-sustaining, and we wanted to make them on par with other recreational facilities and programs in the area. We have always wanted to offer scholarships, if necessary, to our programs. And if people need scholarships, they are welcome to apply for them in the town. We provide camp scholarships and program scholarships. So although the fees increase, and they need to in order to keep us economically sound, we're very happy that we have so many great programs, that they are running so well, and that we can offer them to everyone in the community.
Thank you. What are your top priorities for the community, Ms. Seligson?
My top priorities would be to continue our good government in the town of Mamaroneck. And that means, as you've heard already this evening and from other candidates, keeping our taxes low, trying to reduce them, and also trying to maintain our high level of services. The second priority for me is to really increase our environmental awareness and progress in the town of Mamaroneck. I would like to see us reduce our energy costs. And in reducing our energy costs, we're going to be helping improve the environment. I would like to see us take some proactive educational outreach stands to help the community understand the implications of some of their own actions. I want to help the community understand why we have some of our quality of life laws. I really want to try and reduce the energy costs in that ice rink, and that's really going to be my number one priority.
Thank you. And finally, reassessment. What do you think of the planned real estate reassessments? How much will this cost taxpayers? And what is the anticipated overall financial impact?
Revaluation has been something we've been discussing for many years on the town board, and it was a very tough decision. Tough in the sense that we know it's going to have an impact, and it's going to be kind of a scary prospect for people because they don't know exactly what it means. But what it means is that we want to make the taxes fair in the community. It is not equitable now. Some people pay too much, some people pay too little, some people are maybe right on target. So we decided that we had to do this. It hasn't been done since 1968. It's done all over New York State. And it's going to be a very positive experience, I hope, and we plan. We've hired a very expert consultant that's going to work with us to do the project. We have an administrator for the project, and we've learned from the other communities around us about some of the do's and don'ts in going through this process. I think that it's going to really help us save money in the end, because right now we pay out millions of dollars as a collective community, as a town and the villages and the schools, in small claims and certiorari cases. This will, people can still object to their taxes, but they're not going to have the kind of leg to stand on that they do now. We don't have the assessment role that we can stand up to right now. So it's going to save us that kind of money. It's going to cost $1 million to do it, but we are going to recap that cost in just a couple of years in less claims and payouts.
Thank you. And would you please give us your final statement on
I am really looking forward to becoming supervisor. I've enjoyed working on the town board. I have appreciated working with everyone I've worked with. As I said before, we do work well. And one of the reasons we've worked well is that all 5 people on the town board have always been individuals of different frames of mind and different opinions. We haven't looked at one another as Democrats or Republicans, although we have had a mixed board. And I don't think that's actually necessary going forward. What's necessary is to have 5 people who are smart, dedicated, committed, interested in the community, and willing to work for it, and have their own opinions. Having someone on the board of a different political party, just for the sake of a different political party or for an argument, creates partisanship. We don't need that. We just need people who are really interested in serving the town board. I'm looking forward to that, and I want to thank the people I've worked with, because I think we have been very productive, and we have a lot more to do. I'm excited to really help the community progress in its environmental work and try and save money, and I'm excited to get to know people even better. After being on the board for 12 years, I'm ready, and I'm excited to be supervisor. So thank you very much, and please come out to vote on November 8th.
Thank you. And thanks once again. You have a terrific league here. You really do. They're one of the best leagues in Westchester County. They're active, they're interesting, they're organized. I have never seen a preparation for a complicated debate that was as thorough as the one that I was presented here tonight, despite my own mishaps. It was not their fault at all. And I urge you all, if you're not members, to please support them with your membership. Thank you.